Okay, hello there. Nice to have all of you here. Happy 4th of July to all our U.S. friends. Here we had a stormy Canada day with all the storms going on. We had some really severe weather in the past 3 or 4 days, including one of the strongest thunderstorms I've seen in a long time pass through here. So here we go. And my pages are open. Propagation might be a little iffy today. K-index right now is reported at 5.5. 5.5 is pretty much minor storm level in a geomagnetic field, so we might have some rather unusual to bad propagation. And one of the things we'll be keeping an ear for is pirates. 4th of July pirates. You know that this is a time for a lot of activity, including last night. Last night it was crazy, the activity on the pirate bands. Oh, that would be a good one, Mike WX50. You put the battery, yeah. I didn't think of that. That would be a good one. So everything's all right. Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. This is the live show. Let me have a little sip of beer. Cheers, everyone. So, hey, everybody. Welcome aboard. It's nice to have all of you here. My name is Gilles. I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. That's the northeast part of North America. And we are here to have fun with radio as usual, like we do every Saturday at 20 hours Universal Time. It's really fun to be here and really nice to have all of you join in. So today we'll answer one email that I have that is asking a question, simple question, which is not so simple always with the number of radios. But the question is, since the beginning of the year, what radios have I been using the most when I was listening? So I will answer that question, which radios that I pretty much use all the time. And what are the radios also? It's a two-part question. That's what are the radios that you are using like right now in in the last couple of weeks? What did you use and what will you use coming up? So I will of course answer that. It will be definitely interesting and maybe give ideas to some people of my favorite radios and why I go back to those all the time. So that is going to be the main. We're going to tune the bands, of course. Talk about a little something we've lost. Radio Nacional Amazonas. Maybe some of you have noticed it's not there on 11780 at night. So we're going to talk about that. They're on the air still, but they have a restrained schedule. They have a different schedule because of the high cost of transmitting and a few technical difficulties also. There's a beautiful chat room with wonderful people that are here, and of course that is another place where you can go and share with others. It's a lot of fun. People are kind and nice and just very helpful and very happy to see whoever comes in from wherever around the world. Just a great gang of people basically. And once that is done, well, you know what? We got a Facebook group. That Facebook group, official SWL channel. It has about 4,500 members as of this week, and people share what they're listening to. I often post things that I want, to kind of tip people about. Sometimes I notice that a lot of people in the group are rather new to the hobby and have no idea where to tune for something. And so very often I'll post, okay, Voice of Turkey in English on that frequency. Or this week I posted the Canada Day Pop Shop Radio special from Wooferton, UK, which came in like a ton of bricks. It was really powerful on 11925. And so a lot of people are like, oh, wow, thanks for the tip. Didn't know this existed. Didn't know there was a broadcast. So it's kind of cool to share on the group because it gives ideas, and people share, all sorts of things, including the radios that they use, or personal opinion of, radios while they're testing them. Um, some ideas or some antennas or all sorts of things they do. And of course, what they're listening to. So it's kind of a lot of fun to have that on the group. It's really nice, really nice. So to see all the activity there. So you can join that also. And it kind of does a full circle. I mean, when we're live, we have this chat. There's all sorts of things happening. We are interacting, and it's kind of cool. Then you have, of course, that possibility of Facebook in between live shows where you can continue sharing with others, ask questions, and so on. So that's the cool thing. If you like what I do, please think about support. I have really, really been, it's been very, very helpful in the last year. Your support has been great, and I really, really hope that it continues. It, makes this continue, and we can continue doing live shows and post videos and, buy a radio here and there to test out and so on. So this is great. Your support is welcome. You can send it here through the super chat. There's a little icon with a dollar bill on the bottom of the super chat. And of course, you can also send for Pizza Fund and cat treats. That's also through PayPal with the PayPal address that I am posting here. If you send it through official shortwaveradio@gmail.com, it also works because they are linked to the same account. So your support is greatly appreciated, and it helps tremendously to continue what I do. And, it makes it fun to have these shows every week. And, without your support, there might not be any live shows anymore at some point. So think about it. If you've never donated, always remember that it's not always the same people to give out and take out their wallet. And any amount helps. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's just $1, It's money is money, and it makes for a big amount after a certain amount of time. So it's whatever you can spare is perfectly fine. Don't worry about that. So, welcome everyone. This week we had Canada Day. There was this Pop Shop Radio broadcast, which was really cool, on 11925 from Wooferton, UK. Propagation was just so amazing. Everybody was hearing it from coast to coast. And I actually got a QSL from Tony Pavic for Pop Shop Radio. So that was kind of cool. Let me just check for the QSL card. Yeah, here it is. Just going to show you guys the QSL if you guys want to see it. So here's the, I'm just going to switch to display capture. And here we have the QSL card from Pop Shop Radio and EQSL for the Canada Day broadcast on 11925 kilohertz on July 2nd at 03 UTC, which was July 1st in the evening, 11 p.m. So really was a lot of fun to have that and have Tony Pavic send me a QSL. I didn't request one, but I posted on the Glenn Hauser's IO group, and that probably is where he got my email to send me a QSL card. So it was a lot of fun, and it's cool to have this little EQSL, which was really great. Really great. So there's that. There was, of course, a lot of people were going crazy with all the pirate activity last night. I'm personally going through the, I did 3 days of little bit of AM radio here and there in between work and all the things I have to do, because I'm chasing the 13 colonies. So the 13 colonies is an event that happens each year. It goes until July 8th, and there's 16 stations that you can chase. 13 stations that all have a they're all like K2A, K2B, K2C, and so on, all the way to K2M, I believe. So you got these 13 stations, and you've got 3 bonus stations. One is GB13 COL, which is in the UK. There's a TM13 COL that is in France, and there's the WM3PEN station in Pennsylvania, I believe, that is also there. And so it's pretty cool because you can get a nice little certificate. So why not chase these stations around and see if you can hear them? And I'm halfway through today. I got quite a few last night. So out of the 16 stations, I contacted 8 right now. So I'm on track to maybe get all of them, which would be the first time, because I never had all of them. The best I did was 2 years ago. I had 15 out of the 16. Only one was missing, and I wasn't able to get the contact. But this year, I'm hoping to get all 16 of them, hopefully. So lots of stuff that you can do, which is a lot of fun on the radio, of course. And don't forget, tonight is going to probably be a pirate night, as we are going to, we're on July the 4th, which is U.S. Independence Day. And happy 4th of July, everybody. And that usually means a lot of pirates on the bands. I think it's as big as Halloween. Honestly, I was thinking about it, and I have the impression that it's as big as Halloween sometimes. So sorry, just going to log into the email and everything. So there we go. And by the way, I see it through the email. Thank you so much, Blogger for donation. Much appreciated. Thank you, WF7I Homebrew, for your donation. And thank you, Brian Leisner, for the donation also through PayPal. Much appreciated. Thank you guys for your support. We'll try to chase the number stations that, as we usually do every week, in about 45 minutes time. I have no idea with the propagation conditions right now if it is going to work this week. Last week was very strong. Last week we had them really clear. Hopefully we'll have the signals again this week, but we'll see. K index is pretty high, so that means there's a lot of geomagnetic disturbances going on. So hi there, for we'll say hello to the chat a little bit. I'm going to stop talking. So, hello there, Bobby Burgess, MPRTVG. Nice to have you on board from Morgan City, Louisiana. WA5107 SWL. Free to choose. Bonjour et bienvenue de Saint-Hyacinthe. J'espère que tu vas bien. Nice to have you on board. Mike B, nice to have you on board. And says hello to Mr. Paul. And happy 4th of July to those celebrating. Paul the cat is actually in the backyard right now. He was in the. I was searching for him, and I saw him in the down in the grass downstairs, and I saw that his friend Marcus is also there. So when Marcus shows up, Paul always wants to go down to meet him. They're kind of cat friends. Sometimes they just lie down next to each other in the grass and stay there for like an hour. So it's like it's nice to see that they're kind of cat friends. I'm happy because Marcus is a very ferocious cat. He does not want any other cats around. So I see him sometimes chasing cats, and like he's really I can tell you he's really pissed off when he sees another one. But Paul the cat, he doesn't mind. Paul the cat, it's fine. With Paul the cat, he's okay. There's no problem there. He can, Paul can go anywhere, and he's not gonna do anything. So this is I find that kind of cool that at least he's friends with Paul the cat. So we'll see if he ever comes back up or something. Mike B says, a belated happy Canada Day to your Canadian friends. Thank you so much. Matt, MDK2, nice to have you on board from Denver, Colorado, partly smoky Colorado, and it's 88 Fahrenheit, 31.2. Here we had this week was very hot. We had temperatures with the heat index were most of the time in the hundreds. The heat index brought temperatures at 100 and plus 100 Fahrenheit in Montreal. It was very, very humid, extremely uncomfortable outside. My air conditioning was working full time because I had a hard time just coping with the high heat. But still, it was cooler inside than outside. So today it's actually a little better. It's warm. It's like a warm summer day. We're at 28 here right now. 28 is like something like, I don't know, 85 or 82, 83 Fahrenheit. And it's actually dry today. So even though it's warm, it doesn't feel as bad as the last week. Plus, we had severe thunderstorms, crazy severe thunderstorms, trees that were downed everywhere, and man, it was crazy, and sudden flooding and so on, and many parts of the province actually hit with that. So here in Montreal, we got hit hard was Thursday night, I think. We got one at it was close to 0 UTC, 8 p.m., and we had this supercell come through, and I mean, it was windy and rainy like hell. It's like it looked more like a snowstorm than actually a rainstorm, with the rain going in all directions because of the high winds. And it didn't last long, but it was really, really strong. And actually, it did down a few trees on the city here in Montreal also. So that was kind of a very active weather-wise week and very hot. So hopefully it's gonna cool down a bit in the next week or so, because I'm tired of that real high heat. Jay Watterson 69, nice to have you on board. Fred Waterer, nice to have you on board. Took his seat early, wanted to make sure that there's still some spaces left for him to sit down. Rick Meyer is KO40SA, nice to have you here from South Daytona, Florida. Says storms are lurking around. Ozark Chief, nice to have you here. Rick Meyer says, I did manage a few 10-meter FT8 contacts before lightning rolled in, but the 13 Colonies special event station have not been on 10 meters for me anyway. I've seen them mostly on 20, on 20 and on 40 meters most of the time, sometimes on 80. The problem with the 13 colony stations is that most of them are not that far away from me. So when they're on 20 or higher, it's kind of tough for me to make any contacts. When they're on 40, that's where my chance is. But the problem is that most of the time when they're on 40, my noise floor is the problem. I can barely hear them. So that plays against me a lot here. But I did manage until now to have half of them. So I'll cross my fingers and hope that I'll get the 8 other stations soon. Joe, nice to have you on board from South Jersey. Temperature 100 degrees. Did Montreal's temperature reach triple digits yet? Yeah, that's what I was saying in the last week. We did have with the heat index, we did have triple digits several days in a row. It was really hot. WF7I Homebrew, Bert, nice to have you on board. Good afternoon. And he says on the 4th of July, Virginia. Temperature dipped below 100 Fahrenheit finally. Some thunderstorms in the area. Mike WX50, nice to have you on board from Northwest Arkansas. Emil Johnson, nice to have you on board. Bert has all the 13 colonies event plus the 3 special stations. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Robert Cross, nice to have you on board, my friend. Skidology, nice to have you here from Southern Ontario. Due to solar activity going on right now, conditions seems to be pretty horrible today. Blogger Die, nice to have you here from Central Virginia, where the heat index has dropped to 115. And he's got his new ZWIS ZWS 802 plus W3 repeater. So you're having fun with that. I'm gonna go check your comments on your blog as soon as you post all this stuff there. I really enjoy going and reading that. On if anybody wants to learn more about radios and our friend Blogger Die's personal take on many of them, he's got an amazing blog that you should go to and check out. His writings on a lot of radios. And he's got an interesting take that is very interesting also, because there are things that he focuses on that I don't necessarily focus on when I talk about radio. So and when I try to when I do my reviews, so it's kind of cool. So I'm just going to share the link here so if you guys want to go and see his blog. It is absolutely interesting to go. So check it out, bloggerdie.com. Robert Varner, nice to have you here from New Jersey, KC2TEL. Fiddle121 says, happy 4th of July, nice to have you here. Charles, nice to have you on board from Louisville, Kentucky. Joseph31, nice to have you here from the San Francisco Bay Area. Gianni, nice to have you on board. BR5492, nice to have you here from Michigan. My WX50 show would have, oh yeah, the energy, that the battery under the Can I Lick It shirt. And for those that wonder what it is, it's a geeky shirt. It's actually Can I Lick It? And there's a table of the elements, and all the different colors tell you if you can lick it or not, or the red ones you better stay away if you want to survive. So it's a geeky shirt that I have, which I found it to be kind of cool, so I thought, oh, I want one. Robert Cross, yep, the sad news of the BBC Radio 4 that is gone off longwave after so many years on the air. It's really sad to hear about that, for sure. Another sad news for those that are in Charlotte, where WBT exists. They've been having like a loop of music and announcement on WBT 1110, and we hear it well here in Montreal. The latest news, because people have been asking, so when is the new programming going to start? Well, it seems that it might never. The latest news right now is that the land and the transmitters and antennas are for sale. So what most think is going to happen is someone will buy the land and will probably destroy the antennas and transmitters and build something else on it. And if they sell that land, it's probably going to happen that 1110 WBT and also 630, 610. I'm trying to remember what I posted. WPZS, something like that. Let me just check it out here. They're going to so 610 Charlotte AM radio. So it's 610 AM. 610 AM. They're also WPZS 610 AM are also going to get off the air. So you'll lose at the same time two stations in Charlotte, North Carolina, 1110 and 610 together, which is kind of sad news. Really wish they would have had some other programming for those, at least for the 1110. The 610 has the religious programming. So that also is kind of sad news there. Paul Stringer, nice to have you here. VE3105 SWL in St. Catharines, Ontario. RJ Dakota says, still here, Radio Nacional Arizona, but it's on 49 meters, starting about 23. Yeah, the schedule change for Radio Nacional Amazonas. BGM X4X, thank you so much for your donation. Much appreciated. Missed the last few live streams. So I have two questions. What is your favorite radio with airband? And what is your favorite radio with weather band? Thank you. I'll ask a question on that question. Does it have to have shortwave? It's an all-in-one with shortwave and that you want to talk about, or if it doesn't have shortwave, it's fine. Because my favorite radio with airband is simple, as I always use a scanner radio. With airband, I will use a good old scanner radio. I find it more appealing to use those than any radio that has airband on it. In fact, on my shortwave radios with airband, I never use the airband, even though there's an airport here. If I do that, I'll be scanning the airband using my scanner radios instead. Why? Because they scan way faster, so I don't miss out on anything. But if you want the one with that has shortwave on it and all, one that has airband, that is, I would say, would be my favorite. It could be, if you don't want muting when you tune around, well, the Texan PL 680, because it's analog and does have airband plus shortwave. So the Texan PL 680 would be probably the choice, my favorite choice. But a lot of the other radios are good, like the XH Data D808 is great. I mean, there's a few radios like that are pretty good. And with weather band, if you want, once again, shortwave, what do I have with shortwave that has weather band? There's that XH Data weather band radio, the D109, which is decent. It's not, fantastic, but it's decent. It has beautiful sound. That XH Data D109 WB version, the version with the weather band. One that has the weather band and shortwave. I have a hard time figuring out which ones I have that have all of it together. There's the C Crane that I have. C Crane SSB. I think it has the weather band on it, which makes a nice kind of combo of all of it together. I have a few that are lower grade that have shortwave and weather band, but I don't, they're not very good in performance per se. So and plus now that in Canada weather band is useless. I'm pretty sure this week with the big thunderstorms, a lot of people would have loved to have, a lot of people would love to have that alert on their weather radio, but nope. So that's pretty much what I have to say about that, and the radios. Joe says, by the way, too hot to do radio stuff outdoors, but hopefully this coming week will be tolerable enough for me to tune at the park for a few hours or so. Yeah, I was thinking about going maybe for a couple of walk in the parks in the evening and the week ahead. It's going to be hot in the daytime, but not super hot, and the evening is going to be kind of nice to tune around. I was almost thinking about doing it's going to be warm Monday. We're going to be like upper 80s, but it's not supposed to be very humid. And I have this urge of spending a few hours at Perry Island with some radios. So maybe Monday. I'm going to check that out. Or whatever other park. Could be also a park, Parc de la Visitation, which is actually easier to reach, and I just take the bus all the way down to the water shore, and I'm at the park already, and that's the easiest one for me. So I'm going to check that out. I really like to take some time off and go do my little urban de-expeditions, as I call them, and make videos for you guys at the same time. A lot of you like the videos when I go outdoors and start tuning around and checking out what's on the bands. So that could be a lot of fun, and also bring along my Texan PL520, which will be a nice radio to bring along. 54 Cal, nice to have you on board from Northwest Pennsylvania. Robert Cross, thank you so much for the donation. It is much appreciated. DH1AO, nice to have you on board from Northern Germany. And yeah, Joe, that 11780 that is off now at 22 UTC. Voice of Turkey is going to have a better chance of being easily received on 11785. Andy New, nice to have you here from Bristol, UK, M7CUN. Brian Leisner says, except for me, I tuned in 1 minute. Oh, yeah, you missed the Pop Shop Radio, unfortunately. Skidology heard Pop Shop Radio really strong July 1st from the Wolferton transmitter. I think everybody in North America heard it really, really well, even on the West Coast. Actually, Tony Pavic himself said he was using a portable Texan with just a telescopic way in British Columbia, and he was hearing it coming in real well. Robert Cross says, Harry Crab, it was wrong that BBC Radio 4 did switch off on long wave. Yeah, but they're trying to save money, and they did say that there was like a the number of people listening on long wave was dwindling. It was getting lower and lower, so at some point they had to take a decision, but it's sad to see it go. ZY3WR, very weak, but I managed to catch the signal at 10,000 yesterday. ZY3WR says, I kind of catch 11925 when it was on, but very weak, as expected for not my target area. Yeah, it was pretty much transmitting almost opposite of you. So that made it more difficult a lot more difficult for you to try and receive that. Kenneth, thank you so much for the donation. Much appreciated. Much appreciated, KW1161 Always nice to have you here. We have Harry Krabs says, I think it made financial sense. The BBC has totally lost its license. Finance is untenable. No, yeah, they're having a really hard time to try to. I saw that there are some people starting to complain here in North America that on some of the BBC apps that you have on your phone, they started to put a paywall where they're asking people to pay a monthly fee to access BBC on their smartphones. So they're trying to get money everywhere. Thank you, Ball Stringer. Nice to have you here, and thank you for the donation. Much appreciated. And really nice to have you on board. Gino, nice to have you here from Kentucky. Still kind of struggling studying for my general license. Take your time. Take your time. And, when you feel ready, it's, you can take it as many times as you want anyway. So when you feel ready, just take your time and do the online exams, and check your score. See what score you're getting when you do them online. It's going to help you out a lot. Old Radios, nice to have you on board. Says going to light fireworks at my mom's later. Cool. Fred Water says love the shirt. Please, no comment and no naming of any president or prime minister or anything. It's important to keep the rule active, please. No naming of any politician or anything, Harry Crab. Mark, nice to have you here. Mike B says, I got my SWARL number, so now he's WA02295 SWL. And says it never showed up in my email or my spam, but I went to the website, scrolled down to the very bottom of the list, and it was there. So yeah, a lot of people, they either don't get the email or it gets in the spam, or so I always tell them go check it out on the website directly. You're gonna have your certificate there. So what I did with mine, I should put it up. I printed mine on photo paper and put it in a frame, so it looks kind of official, because it is a nice little certificate that you get with the call, the shortwave listening call. Mike WX50, I watched the 1935 Errol Flynn pirate movie, Captain Blood, last night. It was excellent. I love those old movies. They're always great. There's something about them. ZY3WR, I still can catch 10,000, but only the carrier and the beep, but not the talk. So yeah, because 10,000 has several stations for that give the time. You have where you are, you could easily receive BPM China. You could receive the Italian one, and when propagation is good, you can even receive maybe the WWV and WWVH. And there's a few more on 10,000, I believe. So you might be hearing the different ones depending on the time of day. Brian Leesner, I'm set up with the AirSpy HF Plus and an SDR Play RSPDX. Propagation during the daytime this week was poor. Good at night. Yeah, well, it's typical summer propagation. Summer propagation is crappy during the day. Starts getting better late afternoon and evening. And with the high solar flux we had this week, at night, it was really, really amazing. J Projects, nice to have you here from San Diego, California. Harry Krabs says, I have a UK intermediate license, but I don't transmit, as most amateur chat is extremely boring or exclusive. It's hard to join another established group. So you should go into different modes. Check out FT8, check out different digital modes. It's a lot of fun. And one thing that I do a lot is mostly go on the clusters and check out the stations that are out there that are just trying to work DX, and try to work them. I have fun with that for the most part also. Fredwater, yep. Marcus and Paul are cat friends, definitely. They are really cute together, and it's kind of nice. And Paul is friendly with almost everybody. I did see Paul. That's the interesting one. My neighbor downstairs in the basement has a female cat, and for some reason, Paul gets real upset and real mad at that cat. And he just wants to, like, jump on her and just kill her or something. He gets really, really mad. It's one of the rare times I've seen Paul very ferocious. I don't know why, but because he's really nice with pretty much every other cat. So it's weird. Brian Leisner, I just listened to the Nets on the 40 meters at night. I've been hearing from Europe to Idaho, really active and good propagation. Trustin, nice to have you on board. Good afternoon. Brian Leisner says it was 103 yesterday in Philadelphia. The AC could not keep up. I'm not looking forward to electric bill. Yeah, mine is going to be, I can't wait to see mine. With the very cold winter we had, that we had, and the AC, although I did almost not use the AC in June, but the AC was working 24 hours. So yeah, my new, like, I am on the they call it the budget plan, and they they revisit, they look at the budget plan and change it every year in September. So I ain't looking forward to September, because for sure that thing is going to be real high compared to what I'm paying now. Last winter was dreadfully cold. What else do we have? Cosmic Lettuce. Nice to have you here. Have you ever noticed differences in radio reception depending on distance from the sun? Affiliate on 6 July. The distance from the sun, the variation of that distance, doesn't seem to impact much of propagation on shortwave. And the reason probably is that from the fact that when it's at its farthest, which is going to happen July 6th, and its closest in January, the amount of radiation the sun sends out doesn't vary enough to be really visible on the shortwave bands. Where really the difference in propagation and radio reception, it's really much more due to the fact that the angle of the sun, how high the sun is in the sky, because of the Earth's 23 degrees tilt. That is much more what changes the propagation throughout the year, because as the sun, for example, we were talking about why propagation is crappy in the daytime in summer, and it has to do with a simple fact that the sun, when it's very high up in the sky, the amount of radiation that the ionosphere gets is way higher than in winter, and it creates the D layer. It becomes a lot more dense, and the D layer, what it does is it absorbs radio signals. So that's why in daytime you don't hear long distance AM radio. The D layer is absorbing those signals. So in the summertime, that D layer being so strong, it makes those signals really weak on shortwave in the midday. And so as the months continue and the sun slowly is going lower and lower in the sky, the amount of radiation that gets to the ionosphere is lower, and that D layer kind of becomes weak, and then you start getting better propagation even in the daytime. So this is also the reason why you might have noticed that if you look at 10 meters, 10 meters in the summertime is open only when there's sporadic E-skip. When sporadic E-skip is there, you'll have some propagations. But if there's no sporadic E-skip in the daytime, the 10-meter band is dead, pretty much, because too much absorption. And it comes back alive when we get towards September for the winter period, where then propagation worldwide is great on the 10-meter band. So it's much more that effect that is there, not the distance that we are from the sun, because that variation, that distance difference doesn't change the amount of energy we get from the sun really enough to impact. A lot of people think that, oh, well, we must be at summer and we're closer to the sun, and or not. No, that has nothing to do with the distance. In fact, a lot of people don't know it, that in July, we are at the farthest from the sun in the year. And they're like, well, it's summer. Yeah, because that's not what impacts the weather. What impacts the weather is the angle, that 23 degrees angle of the sun, of the earth, and that it changes the amount of energy because the sun is higher in the sky. So W.S. Bert says, I worked most of the 13 colonies on 40, just a few on 20, a couple on 30, I think one on 80. Mike WX50 says, I think I need to move to Oregon coast, where the highs are in the 60s and lows in the 50s. Yeah, there's kind of a cool trend on the west coast right now. It's kind of interesting. Blogger Dice says, severe thunderstorm warning now. Rotten Animal, nice to have you here from Toronto. Brian Leesner says, I thought my HF Plus that just arrived was dead on arrival, but it was perfect last night. Not 1 hertz off frequency. ZY3WR Morse code at 9962, 1 USB mode. So I don't know what you might be receiving there on that frequency. I'm just going to check out here if there's anything listed around. So, oh, you must be 9963. 9963. You're getting 4XZ, the Israeli Navy. This is Navy Morse code transmission. They're on several frequencies. I hear them regularly here on other frequencies. What you're getting there is the Israel Navy 4XZ. If you actually decode, they do two things. There's the idle mode, where they're just sending out, 4XZ IDs, and they transmit coded 5-letter messages from time to time that are encrypted. So what you're getting there is the Israeli Navy. Fred Waters says, my cat Charlie just flopped on the desk beside me. He's hanging out with me and listening to Jill. So Brian Leesner says, get on here, a difference switching AM lower and upper sideband. Stefan Navi, nice to have you on board from London, Ontario. Quinton, nice to have you here. I've recently been having a lot of success with a horizontal random wire antenna taped to a metal railing out of my balcony. Any tips for getting more out of it? Length, orientation? the general rule for a random wire is make it as long as it's possible to do. That's pretty much what we always say. Just the longest you can do it, do it that long. As for orientation, a random wire is rather short. Anything under, 150, 150, 200 feet is non-directional. So whatever the orientation you're going to have, it doesn't going to change much. You're better actually looking at positioning it in a way where it receives the least amount of noise. So what you could do is put your radio on a frequency where there's no signal, look at how much noise you're getting, and move it around and see if there's a place where it's actually quieter. And when you choose and you see that there's a place that's quiet, you just leave it like that. That means you'll have less noise. But for the rest, like I said, the general rule of a random wire is the longest you can make it. Mark says 610 used to be my old station when I was a kid, Peace River, Alberta. Fred Wire openly defying the no cats on desk rule. KW161, Kenneth, nice to have you here from muggy Tucson, Arizona. It was muggy all week, but now today it's not too bad. If you find it boring, Harry, you just can get the fuck out. RJ Dakota, our local medium wave station flow has a few holes in it now. Gone is 590, 920, 1010, 1430, 1490. It's there's a lot of stations on AM on medium wave are actually like leaving the bands. There are parts of Canada now that have very little signals on the bands. So free to choose whether band is useless in Canada now. Yep, that's the sad thing about it. Brian Leesner posted a video last night with Noah hitting 6 out of 7 frequencies on the Discovery HF Plus. I have the same on the M-Lite 880. Mark, they should give weather band to the amateurs in Canada also. Old CHU frequencies for experimental use. Yeah. Brett Woolley, is the 680 still available new? I think it's still out of stock at Anonco. I'm not sure if you can still get one brand new right now. I think you can get a 660, which is close. But the 680, I'm not sure. Brian Leesner, the D109WB has big sound for a little radio. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Blogger there's also an emergency format, whether it be D608WB, next stage data. Joe says, Airband, how many of you remember that little pocket AM Air Jet Stream Mini from Radio Shack back in the 80s? Yeah, and the weather cubes. Blogger the M-Lite 880 has both air and weather. Oh yeah, that's true. The M-Lite 880. You have airband and weather band on it, which what saves the M-Lite for me and keeping it as a radio I use is the incredible noise reduction. Because for the rest, I'm not a big fan of the radio. We're just going to go to the frequency range for our station. So in 5 minutes time, let me go put CW 17453, and we'll see if we can catch the spy number station out of St. Petersburg. I doubt it will work with the propagation we have now. So 17453 CW and 17452 upper sideband. So if you guys want to try it in 4 minutes time, it's coming up. Understanding truth. I just got a Sony ICF 2010. It is better than my PL880 or 990 in many ways. Great sync detection and overall sound. I did the Q3 replacement. 8 AM is strong. Great buy on eBay for 100. For under 100, you got a really great deal there. When you get that for that price, that's not bad of a deal. Yeah, lick. Yeah, every crab, you can lick the paint too. It's gonna help you out. Maybe gonna give you a brain. What do we have? WF7I Umbru says I had a Summits on the Air activation on Thursday. The mountaintop was free of any other people. Large flat boulders to sit on and set up and shaded. Finished by noon to escape the oncoming heat. So that's cool. Nice place. It's kind of fun to have our little spot, you know. Sometimes being alone is kind of cool also. Michael, 94 and sunny here in northern New Jersey. Does anyone know what's going on with 710 WOR in New York? Have you, is it on the air or is it not on the air or something is happening? I'm not aware of anything on 710 WOR that unusual. I haven't read anything about it anyways. Blogger I was going to test weather alerts on these AWS 802 and it went off before I could hit the alert button. Chuck Schreiber, nice to have you here from sunny South Texas. Thank you, Kenneth. Quentin, random wire has made my ML830 feel like a total waste of money. That's because where you live, you probably don't have a lot of noise. The ML830 would save you if you were in a really noisy environment. There you'd see that the ML830 gets signals that your long wire would not, because it receives less noise than your long wire. But the fact that you have better performance simply tells me that your area where you set up the wire is actually quiet. And so it lets you listen to some signals. Here it's the same. Here I've got the GA490, but if I listen to my end-fed antenna, if there would be no noise, my end-fed antenna, which is technically a wire in the backyard, would actually perform better. That is always the case. If you can put a wire that is quiet, that is going to be something that's going to be better in general in performance. What makes the ML830 and all the magnetic loops good is for people that, you know, like me here in a big city, it gives me the possibility to hear the lower frequencies, which are totally washed out with a long wire or a wire antenna. KW61 says, money, 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 baby dance. So I haven't heard anything right now. And it's supposed to come on in a few seconds. I ain't hearing anything on 17453. The complete opposite of last week. Last week was great. Last week was great, but this week is zero. Mike WX50 says ML830 is great for me since I live in a high noise area. Yeah, that's where it shines. That's where it really, really shines. Because if you compare it and use it in a low noise environment, yeah, a wire beats it. Jim Gordon, nice to have you here from Scotland. Just returned from England's East Anglia region where the weather hit 35 degrees on this at one stage. Lots of memories of the offshore pirate stations that were in the area. So nice to have you here. Kenneth, I'm thinking about having spam for lunch today. Tosinov, nice to have you here from Alabama. Hot Ghost Speller, nice to have you on board. WB0HOZ. And Lagardai says, I hear spam is very popular in Hawaii. Brian Lees, there I have 2 instances of SDR++ running and 2 SDRs plugged in the laptop today, sharing the antenna on a splitter, and nothing but static on both right now. Just a Y cable seems to work well. Trustin says, had a fun time this week catching the Canada Day and 13 Colonies contest. 2 of my favorites to listen to. Happy Canada and Independence Day. Jim Gordon says, happy 4th of July, American viewers. To quote Mr. Spock, live long and prosper. I've never had spam, ever. I've seen the can. I've seen it. I've never tasted. For some reason, I can't come to the fact that I would eat that. Estela Garcia, nice to have you on board. Been a long time, my friend. Brian Leesner, when you can't hear WRMI, it's a bad day for reception. Yeah, the K-index is high. I'm just going to check out here quickly. So I'm hearing WRMI, but it's not very strong on 15770. So K-index is very high, so I don't expect that we're going to have some great radio time today on tuning the bands, unfortunately. But that's life. It happens. We have to deal with it. Last week was the total opposite. Last week was we had a lot of good propagation. We would hear almost everything. It was just great. So anyways, we'll still try in 17 minutes for the other one on the lower frequency. Mike WX50, spam became a culinary icon in Hawaii during World War II because fresh meat was strictly rationed and heavily prioritized for military personnel. Yeah, that's the advantage of things like that. The fact that, you know, it is a canned meat, so it lasts for a long time. Fiddle121, thank you so much for the donation. Much appreciated. MDK2 Radio says getting an X-Class solar flare right now. LHF is dead. So here we go. Here we go. So it just happened a few seconds ago. I'm going to check out my Space Weather app here, which is going to... So solar activity. Yeah, there's just a big spike. X1.3. So X1.3 is a pretty strong flare. It is a pretty strong flare. So that is going to really mess up our listening experience today on the bands. Mark says not even WWV. So yeah, well, this week we had several flares. We had several M flares. We had a couple of X flares. The geomagnetic storming of today actually reflects that because the flares have created a coronal mass ejection that hit the Earth today. So I was expecting that because spaceweather.com was kind of always mentioning that July 4th could be a little problematic for you know, the geomagnetic storming. And actually, I went to bed at 3 in the morning, and they're kind of not easy to see. But on this picture I took at 3 a.m., let me just put this here. Picture I took at 3 a.m., there's very, very small visible greenish in the sky over the through that light pollution. And when you look closely, you can see that there was a little bit of auroras happening last night. If it was not for the light pollution, I would have seen auroras here in Montreal at 3 in the morning last night. The K index was at 7 or 8. Uh, it was a G3 class geomagnetic storm. ZY3WR, for me, it never changed, but I noticed station like China National Radio, 17 at 11, 6:30. Usually I catch that station around 15 UTC, but sometime around 13 UTC. So, oh, definitely. There are changes. There are even more changes than that. But also the changes that go through also depend a lot on the latitude, how high or how close you are to the poles. So the closer you are to the North or the South Pole, the more those changes are apparent. The closer you are to the equator, the less you notice the differences. Gabriel, nice to have you on board from Uruguay. And nice to have you here, CX32SWL. 54 Cal 12040 Radio Farda. Though I heard bubble jammer in the noise. Thought I heard the bubble jammer in the noise. It's possible. It's possible. Yeah, but that means if a wire works for you, Quentin, I think it's because you have lower noise than you think. You probably have lower noise than you think. Unless your MLE30 is a defective and doesn't really work. But the H1AO, VHF, and 6 meter is to expect aurora at least. The wind, nice to have you here. Nice to have you on board. Mark says, I hooked up my C-band dish again. Tim Tillman is on LAFF 103 degrees west. Jim Gordon, I remember when Radio Netherlands put out a booklet entitled Give Your Aerial Some Air. Good advice. Yeah, yeah. Fred Waterer, the U.S. sent 2 billion cans of spam to Soviet Union. I better quit before Jill kicks us out for spamming. All right, old radios, have fun. My WX50 Radio Netherlands had some very useful white papers and booklets. Oh yeah, I remember asking for some of the white papers on receivers and booklets on all sorts of shortwave subject. They really were there to try to help you get the most out of your shortwave receivers. It was really, really cool. Back in the day when they had radio stations had budgets to send all of that. Jim Gordon here in the UK. People have fond memories of spam. It was popular when food was rationed during World War II. Still sells well. Yeah, I don't think my mom ever purchased one of those. Ever purchased spam. So that's why I probably never tasted it. Toast and Loaf, there are several new Vermont kiwis, looks like. Okay. Okay, let's go down. 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 Craig Martinetti, nice to have you on board. Says, sorry I haven't been chatting. Nice to have you on board. All right. A lot of people are listening in the background and just not really interacting with us, but are watching the show. So it's thank you, Gabriel, for the donation. Much appreciated through PayPal. Shortwave listener, just stopping by to say hi, Gel. Great channel and always great information. And happy 4th to all in the US. So thank you so much. Nice to have you here, my friend. BR5492, I need a bigger radio for my fat fingers. S2200X. I would go with the S2200X. You'll have a nice big radio. You'll be happy. Your fat fingers will be happy. And it's a great radio. I just love it. We're going to talk about that because somebody asked a question about my favorite radios I use right now. KW61, you need to install a cutoff switch at your local power station when you want to DX. Yeah, that is definitely something I would need. ZY3WR 17452 USB, very weak. What else do we have? Fredwater says spam was a genius invention. They needed a way to feed millions of people without full spoilage. To this day, you can open the can without tools in your kitchen and or in a slit trench, eat it cold or not. Yeah, no, definitely. There's advantages to these things, and it was probably invented for that purpose too. But I've never had it. Maybe I should try it someday. It's like here somebody that's been in the armed forces in Canada was telling me that in their packs of food that they have with them, the military have with them when they go on some of their missions, they have Kraft dinner because you can make Kraft dinner with water. It's not as good as with milk, but they tell you, you can boil water so that it becomes, good to drink, but also to cook your Kraft dinner. And apparently they have Kraft dinner as standard in the packs because it's pasta, gives a lot of energy, and it can be made with water that you just have to boil. So you don't need anything. You have everything in the package. All you need is to get yourself water and boil it. So it's kind of an easy thing to do, and you've got food, whatever it tastes like, but you've got food. So, these things like that are good for anything that you go on a field trip or whatever. You're in a mission somewhere, have access to pretty much nothing. At least you got food, especially in foreign countries where what you have could be contaminated with all sorts of things and germs. You want to have something that you can eat and that will be safe, not make you sick. Brian Leisner says 15770 sounds like a local station. Dustin Love has 15770 strong in Vermont. And here, it's right now disappeared. I barely get a peep signal which doesn't happen often because I usually have a pretty good signal from 15770 all the time. So it's so I'm looking at the space weather here. Yeah, pretty crazy. So in 5 minutes, I'm going to still try it anyway. 16312. So that's going to be the next frequency we're going to try. That probably won't work. 312 CW or 16311 upper sideband. Dakota, spam is a mix of pork shoulder and ham. I could see why it would be so popular in Hawaii. Fried properly, tastes like bacon. Tosanov cannot hear any WWVs. Fredwater, if propagation is off, more time for Moscow Nights chair dancing. Wood Turner says, can I use the MLA30 with the Shoyang LC90? Yes, you can, absolutely. You just need the proper adapter for the cable so that you can plug it into the LC90. But yes, you can. Absolutely. I often plug my LC90 here on the multi-coupler, which is a Toshiba GA490, which is an equivalent of the MLA30, and works great. Brian Leesner, spam sandwiches, really well done, tastes like bacon. Now you guys make me want to buy a can of spam and try it this week. Jim Gordon, I too have noted that shortwave conditions have been really poor today. CGTN radio that normally comes in well on 17490, 8 to 13 was non-existent. So yeah, that had a lot to do with that geomagnetic storming that's happening right now. Especially when you hear that station on 17490, that signal probably crosses the North Pole and up to your area. So with a geomagnetic storm, that signal just was absorbed by the ionosphere. It just didn't go through. So it's probably going to be still a little disturbed still tomorrow, as I think there's still another CME that should maybe hit the earth. So it might not be a great weekend, but hopefully next week things are going to get better. Craig Martinetti, as you know, I am an American. I am now a Canadian too. I live in Oxford County, Ontario, Canada. So that's cool. Mark says, my buddy said there was flutter here last night on 27 megahertz. Oh yeah, that's possible. What is very interesting, is looking at FT8, for example. When you are tuned to FT8 and suddenly there's a solar flare or a geomagnetic storm that hits, it's crazy to see all the changing patterns of where you're listening to the signals on FT8. You might have international propagation everywhere, and suddenly, poof, you hear only local stations or stations from a specific area. Also, when you look at PSK Reporter, when you're ham and you transmit FT8, you can also see when something happens, you look at the map and you see that suddenly your signal is just not crossing to Europe anymore. And you're like, wow, something's happening. My signal was hitting Europe half an hour ago. And then suddenly it just stopped and it's only local or North America or just in the United States. So it's kind of interesting because it gives you an idea of the changing propagation almost in live time. Close enough here is 10, 15, decent on Kiwi. My radio is dead though. Fred Waterer. Just gonna go back up. Okay, this is good. Fred Water says the reason we call junk email spam is from the Monty Python spam skit. Richard Lemke, nice to have you on board. Says area golf courses, much water, driving ranges closed most of June. Yeah, you guys were hit with a lot of rain. Brian Leesner, I can only hear WWV very early in the morning today. It's just a lot of static. Martin, nice to have you on board. Just a short while ago, while having a late night pizza and some Gauloise, the lack of an S at the end makes it a Belgian beer instead of a French smoke. So, Unsurprisingly, reception just as bad here at the moment. So nice to have you here, Martin. Richard Lemke, Romania, we get their West Coast working on 11, 620, hit and miss. Yeah, they've been having, the Radio Romania has been having a lot of hard time getting into the West Coast pretty much. So, like I was thinking, 16312 is, I don't hear anything right now. But yeah, the Radio Romania has been a hard receive. I hear your Richard. I hear your emails, your messages that you send them from time to time in their mailbag show. I hear your name. I heard your name also on, where was it? Oh, it's on Wavescan. There's the Japanese DX thing on Wavescan, and they I think it was last week or the week before, they said hello to Richard Lemke. Paul Stringer, when I got my first radio 50 years ago, you could buy a store-bought antenna. I always made my own. I did purchase from Universal Shortwave a book wire antennas. Yeah, that was kind of cool, Richard, to have the Zoom meeting and the show here. And the show here, getting together and having a shared experience. It was a lot of fun. A lot of people liked that. For you to choose, yeah, with water, I don't know what it tastes like, but I guess you have no choice. You boil water and you eat it. It still has, I mean that powder still has taste, but yeah, without milk, I'm not sure. I would have to try it one day. Kev Michael, nice to have you here. Teriyaki Spam. Jim Gordon's here in Scotland. We have canned haggis. I've seen that at what store was I in? I was at a store. One of those. It was like it's a grocery store, but it was one of those like grocery stores that appeal to a certain community. And I remember seeing that, and every time I see that, it always reminds me of The Simpsons. Blogger has 15770 fare on the ZWS 802 with repeater. Kevin Michael, Radio New Zealand not coming in. And Blogger says it has a 9-foot wire on it. Brian Isner says, I meant most days 15770 sounds local on the East Coast. Not this week. Listen to the Great Master Vegan Show. It's entertaining in a weird way. Yeah, it's kind of particular, I gotta tell you. So Richard Lemke in Alberta says that his shortwave bands are dead. Yeah, pretty quiet. Brian Laser replacement for external antenna jack on the LC90 is sheer genius. Mike B. Gordon Ramsay actually has a recipe that uses spam. Oh, wow. Okay. Richard Lemke. Oops. I'm just going to go back. Saying that USA time signal's dead. Let me try them here. So we're going to go start at the top. Let's try 25. 20. I've got a weak 15. It's very, very weak, but I hear the tone. So on 15, it's barely coming in. It's not coming in on 10. And Brother Scare on 9930 WTWW. There's a very strong signal here. Wow, look at that really powerful signal from WINB 9265. It's almost the only signal in the whole 31 meter band right now. But this is local. It's like the station next door. I hear it well usually, but this well is surprising. Red Wally says hickory flavor and low sodium spam are the best. I guess I'll have to try it sometime. I'll give you guys my opinion when I eat it. Brian Lee's there. I'm hearing over the horizon radar, I think. 40 meters, 03 UTC 7210. I'm trying again tonight. I'll be on 40 meters, and bam, it can be random. It's a fixed bandwidth. ZY3WR, no matter the condition, China radio always come across even outside the target area. So Richard Lemke, 2118, just in solar report. So that is that explains a lot of our problems. ZY3WR recently, it's their 24-hour, which interrupt with close station beside China for Europe, 7295. Richard Lemke says, very active, love the hobby. Oh, it's a great hobby, and it's fun to, it's definitely fun. It's nice. I always find it nice to hear your name on mailbag shows and different shows that I'll listen to where they read listener mail. It tells me when I don't have any news from you from a long time, and it just comforts me. It lets me know that you're fine and you're doing radio. The H1AO elevated solar wind 572.1 kilometers per second. Storm may intensify. So that means tonight may be another night to watch for possible auroras. This is going to be something to check out. It's kind of interesting to see the conditions. So right now, definitely index at 5. So we'll see. Might be some more things to listen to watch the auroras or stuff. Scatology, when I was outside one time, I was able to pick up the frequency for India, but not the frequency for the US West Coast that airs simultaneously with the India one. So, yeah. Propagation sometimes has this weird way of doing things. John Bickham, nice to have you here from Northeast Florida. Jim Gordon, in Canada, there are many Scots, so we and our foods, drinks, and customs crop up for better or worse. Kamikaze76, nice to have you here from West Michigan. Richard Lemke's posting the solar update. Brett Woolley, Monty Python spam song is a classic. Tubruk Tim, nice to have you here. Says, here in Baltimore, back in the day, late at night, I could pick up Radio Australia, but never could get Radio New Zealand. Go figure. Well, if you going back in the day, real far back, because it depends when it was. Remember that for a long time, Radio New Zealand was a low-powered station. It was only on 7.5 kilowatts of power. So for a long time, getting Radio New Zealand was a really an amazing feat. And but now they have 100 kilowatts, makes it easier. And also the target areas. Over time, they changed their target areas a lot also for Radio New Zealand. So some of the frequencies that they use times And plus the target area they're aiming at probably helps a lot, for sure. Mark says spam is the big topic today. Yeah, it's spam day. Christopher, nice to have you on board. Says new Baofeng handy talkie UV36 Pro with shortwave bands and SSB looks awesome. Yeah, when I go on Amazon, because I look at radios, I often get some of those Baofengs or even some of the other brands, and some of them are absolutely, absolutely sexy. You look at them and you're like, man, that is a beautiful radio, beautiful display. It's just amazing. Skidology, I'm going to check the London, Ontario Kiwi to see if I can pick up 9265 because I can't get it over here inside. And what else do we have? WRMI is back, says Brian. All the radios I cleaned off the sharp red boombox from 1987. Cool. The H1AO, yes, 6-meter auroras to expect. Creepy noise in it. There's something that is going to be interesting to check out. There's this station in Greenland. He's on Asiat Island, and he's going to be active from the 7th to the 17th. And he wants to do almost exclusively 6 meters. And I am gonna try, because I'm thinking, wow, if there would be some opening on 6 meters, that would just be absolutely fantastic, honestly. I would go nuts if I could make a contact on 6 meters from Montreal to Asiat Island. 6 meters, man, I'd be jumping up and down. But I think that one's going to be a tough one. Richard Lemke says Aurora Watch 38%. Jim Gordon, note 9265 via 20 SDR, but the buzzer is thundering in with someone talking and music on 4625. Scatology also, Jill, if you ever tune into VORW when John is doing the mailbag segment, if you hear Austin from Southern Ontario, Canada, that's me. Oh, all right. All right. All right. That's going to be it's going to be interesting. The H1AO says, yeah, New Zealand was definitely DX in the 80s. I got a QSL from them in the 80s. And the story is I was using the DX302 from Radio Shack back in the day. And the DX302, although a okay receiver, has one big flaw. If you have strong, powerful signals in the same band you're listening, it has this background hiss that pops up because it's totally overloaded by the signals. So I didn't know that back in the day until New Zealand. I was trying New Zealand every day and couldn't hear it. And I thought, man, I hear Australia real well on the 49 meter band early in the morning. I'm pretty sure 6100 kilohertz must come in from New Zealand, although I knew that, New Zealand had low power. And when I was trying to listen to, what would happen is Radio Canada International from Sackville would turn on their transmitter for the morning broadcast in French and English on 5960. So as soon as they would turn that on, the hiss would be there. And that's one day when I noticed that I had a quiet, I was on a frequency where there was nothing. So there was just a quiet background noise. And suddenly, poof, it suddenly became much stronger background noise. And I couldn't explain. I said, what's the interference? Is it coming around me? And one day I was able to pinpoint the exact time that Radio Canada International came on the air with their transmitter, because it actually matched the hiss from the radio. So I thought, okay, that's why I'm unable to hear Radio New Zealand. The radio has this flaw, and the background noise is way too high when a strong transmitter is there. So that kind of bummed me down, because I noticed that the radio had a flaw that was kind of a bad flaw. But I was lucky one morning. I tried, I still would try again. Radio Canada International came on only about 20 minutes late. And that 20 minutes gave me 20 minutes where I was listening to Radio New Zealand, sign on, and programming. So I took the opportunity to make the reception report, because I thought, man, make the reception report. It might never happen again. And as soon as Radio Canada International popped up on 5960, poof, I lost Radio New Zealand. But I was so happy, because I was like, man, I was able to make a reception report. This is so cool. And I sent a letter, and I don't know, sometime like a month and a half later, I had my Radio New Zealand QSL card, which was really, really cool. That one was like a special card for me, because it was definitely something that was exceptional. It was like, this is DX, and this is a tough one for me. And I'm so happy to actually be able to hear Radio New Zealand. Let me check if New Zealand, did I scan the ZA? Radio New Zealand. My first QSL card from Radio New Zealand. So this one, check. Yeah, that's the one. So this is it's a little bigger. I'm trying to see if I have it's this one. Here we go. So I have the back and the front. So I'm going to show you guys that. The Radio New Zealand QSL that I have. That's the one from from that experience that I just explained. So here's the display capture. So is the front of the card, Radio New Zealand International. So that is the card that I got in the mail. And that's the back of the card. So this is 23 September 1985. I guess that's 85. Yeah, 85. So the date of the card says, "Dear listener, thank you for your letter. We are happy to verify your report and transmission from our external service on 6100 megahertz, which was kilohertz, should have been. Date 29 August 1985 is when I got it. 11 hours UTC. So that means I woke up at early to do a reception report at 7 in the morning, 7 a.m. Enclosed, find a copy of the current program and frequency schedules and external service division. So that was from the day when they were at 7.5 kilowatts only. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So this card has a special meaning for me, because it definitely is a card that represents a tough DX time. It was difficult to get that station, and I was so happy to actually get this QSL back in the day. So it was really, really cool. What else do we have? Christopher says, SDR News, new Zenith SDR software now available for the RTL SDR dongle. plus SDR Play, $49 for Pro version. Richard Wagner, nice to have you here from Northeast Illinois. Just up from a nap, massive migraine. Oh man, that's not fun. MJ Stratford, nice to have you here from the UK. Nice to have you here. Richard Lemke, swallowing 666 odd dogs. Youch. Scatology, yeah, I'm not getting it at all on the London Ontario Kiwi. Plug it, I'm getting this what sounds like Russian on 15770. Brian Leisner, WRMI broadcasting in a Slavic language. It's finding its way back. MJ Stratford, ex-South African, used to visit a friend many years ago, and he was a ham operator. Bob Opperman was his name, ZR1BOB. I think his call was back in the 90s. Cool. Old Radio's been playing USA-related records on his channel all week. Richard Lemke says 80s fabulous years. Brian Leesner, side-by-side comparison about AirSpy and SDR Play. SDR Play wins and signal strength. I'm not sending the AirSpy back, even though I was clueless as to the max bandwidth it can cover as an SDR. Yeah, it's a very small bandwidth compared to the SDR Play. The AirSpy will show you up to barely show you a megahertz of spectrum, where SDR Play will give you up to 10 if you want. The AirSpy HF Plus Discovery I got here, for me, seemed to be at par with the SDR Play and Receive. What people are really going nuts about on the AirSpy, they seem to say that in medium wave DXing, it is superior to the SDR Play. I'm not a big medium wave DXer, so it's not something that I really test, if I gotta say. Christopher says, I love the realistic DX302, but it was the worst drift monster ever. Beautiful box. Well, you know, since I was coming from a DX100, the DX302's drift was actually a welcome change, because the DX100 is, if you thought the 302 drifted a lot, oh boy, the 100 is like, you get better, you keep your hand on a BFO all the time. The DX302, that drift was more manageable. So, but yeah, the radios in the day when they weren't made with phase lock loops in the day. So they would drift with the temperature, and it would, what I found at the 302 was that if you let it on, you power it and you leave it on for an hour, the drift after an hour was manageable. It's like, yeah, it drifts, but it's it was better anyways at the 100. So for me, it was an improvement. And I mean, I had the 302 from about 1984 all the way up to 1990 when I got my Kenwood R5000. I mean, that's a big step up. The Kenwood R5000, when you get that compared to a DX302, you're like, yeah, okay, now I'm in the big league. And that was like, okay, drift is over. There's no more drift, and no more overloading of signals doing crappy stuff. The DX302 is okay, but it was not a fantastic radio. I guess it would maybe cope better today because there's less shortwave signals to mess with it. But, I still wish I would not have sold it. I would have loved to have the DX302 here in my radios. It was kind of nice, and there's a few radios like that I should not have departed, and that I'm actually sad that I did depart with. Brian Leesner is now 78 inside the house. I have a brick house. It's hauling the heat and desperately need the rain they keep saying might happen. Yeah, here's a brick building also, and when it's hot all day, when it's hot all day, I go outside on the balcony and at night, and I actually feel the heat radiating back from the bricks, and it's just crazy. Jim Gordon, the beer tonight is a Guinness draft in cans, while in East Anglia the beer was Adnams, a famous ale from Southwold, Suffolk. It's widely exported. Check it out. Yeah, I have to for the exotic beers. I have to go to the liquor store, the provincial liquor stores. They have most of those. Although I have not been, and I need to go. There's absolutely not far from here a place that's called 1001 Beers, and apparently they have a big choice. I would need to go and see what they have one day and check out. DJ Craze, hi all, nice to have you here. Says I'm late. Swore I would look for the stream at 4 p.m. and then didn't. Gabriel says, Gillier, Radio New Zealand story. Remember me when a coworker shut down our public radio on shortwave just for me to catch Radio Afghanistan. John Beckham, New Zealand, such a beautiful country. Fiddle is having a Yuengling, which is that Chinese beer, right? 96 degrees in Brooklyn. That is warm. So, guys, I have to do my caregiving duties. I almost forgot. I will keep you guys with the soothing sounds of WINB. Signal's a little weaker than it was before. So, I will come back. That is such a weird voice. So I'll be back in a few minutes, guys, and I'll continue. Okay. I was wondering who was herding cows. Oh, God. So, here we continue. Skidology says, I did auto detect on the 3BO app for the broadcast on 15770 WRMI, and it's clearly Russian, but I can't tell what station is broadcasting around this time. Brian Leeser says, when medium waves come back, we'll be using the AirSpy. Skidology used to had to use the London, Ontario QE to listen to it clearly. All right. So don't forget, guys, if you want to help out, there's the super chat that's here. That always is extremely helpful. You guys have been coming through, and it helps me continue on the on the live shows and the bands. Turn this here, and it is very, very appreciated. If you like what I do, please think about giving a little something. And so the super chat, and of course there's a pizza fund through PayPal. I'm trying a new pizza place tonight. I'm curious. Everybody's been raving about it, so that's going to be a new pizza place tonight, and see how good it is. And I'll take part of the donation and buy a can of Spam this week and try it out. So Tsingtao, Kevin Michael, yeah. I had that a few times when going to the, there's a Asian restaurant not far from here that is really good. And they actually had it Tsingtao, and that's always that I always have one of those beers when I go there. So, garlic spam. Yeah, I didn't even know that they came in multiple flavors. Me neither. Close enough. I'm looking at a 30 megahertz wide spectrum, and I saw a big blob of noise around 25 megahertz. It looked odd. Okay, Michael, BBC4. 198 kilohertz is dead. Yep, absolutely. I got that in Riverside, California, 95 at 1 in the morning, and got a QSL card from October 95. Wow. Said why 3WR conditions very bad, yet French radio international 97.90 is strong. The one of the things that we need to observe when there's a geomagnetic storm and that the bands are dead, often they're not totally dead. They actually are dead for certain types of broadcasts where they come from, but often what it comes from north or south of us is enhanced. So, for example, when there were a lot of Brazilians on the bands a few years ago, there was a really strong geomagnetic storm, and all the stations were washed out. I couldn't hear the standard, Radio Romania and so on. But yet, when I would go in 31 meter band, all these weak Brazilians were actually stronger than usual and coming in really well. So when there is a storm, it doesn't wash out everything. A geomagnetic storm will enhance some signals and will, of course, destroys other types of signals. It all depends on where it comes from where you live. Timothy Gunter says BBC4 radio was on, but not the broadcast on the Netherlands site, so I streamed it to hear it on TuneIn. Well, sad, yeah. Christopher, sad to see that BBC Longwave 198 is gone. John Beckham's got Bud Platinums in a bottle. I think I had one. I had that once. DH1AO, my dad cooked breaded spam in the pan along with mashed potatoes and melted butter. Was it an eternal sin to your taste buds, or is it kind of okay? I would try it. I would try it. Brian Lee's there. Kevin Michael says, long way my area of the world is Mongolia and East Russia. Brian Lee says, one of my favorites is Asahi Extra Dry. Make sure you get the one shipped in from Japan. The brewery in North America makes something called Asahi Extra Dry, but it's not the same. BR5492, thanks guys. Because of you, I just ate a can of Spam and a package of Limburger cheese. And Michael says 285 kilohertz Siberian radio at night. Free to choose, says Radio Exterior de España, 15500. Let's go check it out. If it, yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. We hear. Not hearing Turkey, which would have been a good test tonight because, as you noticed, I'm on 11785, and we had Brazil on 11780 at night every night. 11780 is now a signal that stops early. So you won't have your Brazilian music at night like you used to have On the weekdays, you can have 6180 kilohertz, 6180 for Brazil at night in North America, but only weekdays. And weekends, 6180 is not on. Gabriel says, oh well, every time Joe mentioned a pizza fund, I have the need of eating pizza. I'm getting some serious weight here. Everybody gets fat because of my pizza fund. Stephen Wright says, spam fried in batter, yummy. Like WX50 had Hawaiian nachos, but no spam was involved. So, old radios, beer, pizza, and fireworks. Sounds like a good 4th of July to me. Yep, why not? The only thing you got to be careful is not too many beers with those fireworks. That is a a mix that's meant for disaster. TVNT Gunter's broadcast is what I love about shortwave. Tosanov 15770. Let's go and see if it's better than it was earlier. It's weaker than it is usually. It's definitely weaker than usual. But Spain is definitely good on 15.5. So Spain is definitely good on 15.5. Brian Leesner, good signal on 15.500. I can't hear or even see a little spike on 92.65. MDK2, pizza, come over for the cookout. All right. I'll be there. There must be some way. Bob from Wick, nice to have you on board. Says you spam. Skidology 15.500 is very weak, but I imagine it will probably come in well outside of the parking lot of our apartment complex. Yeah, maybe it's because you have a lot of noise. Brian Leeser, 19 meters is about it today. Close enough. It's pretty much dead, about 21 megahertz, but that noise looked cool. Maybe it was a flare. There's all sorts of things that can happen. Sometimes we know that some. There was a noise and I'm curious. We know that sometimes it's possible for solar flares and high solar activity to create some noise on the bands that can be seen when you have an SDR. So you never know what could happen when you have high solar activity. What else do we have? And the Skidology says, and it's coming somewhat well on the Linden Kiwi SDR. Old radios, real Japanese beer. Kevin Michael, I wonder what Geostorm will do on the 1600 to 5000 kilohertz at night. Well, usually what's close is relatively unchanged. It's everything that's further away, but sometimes it enhances some signals, and it's kind of interesting. Robert Varner has pizzas all over the place. So, are you you're the official distributor of pizza, or Robert? So, I'm down to chat. I'm going to answer a question that came in this week that someone sent in. I'm just going to go to email and sorry, and check it out. So the email, oops, yeah, all right. Oh, we got that. Looks great. We have Matt that is sending a cheers, and he's showing us his drinks. Looks absolutely delicious. So cheers, cheers. So that's pretty cool. Having fun there. 4th of July, of course, party time. So let me just go back here. Okay, so email. So the email that came in was it's simply a question. So he's watching the live show. His name is Jasper, and he's in the northwest of the United States. And he says that he enjoys the live show every week. And so his question is, what are your favorite radios that you've used this year? That would be the ones that you would choose all the time. And what are your current radios? If you had to choose radios this week, or even in the last week, what did you choose as your favorite radios to play with? So, and he says, thank you for all you do. So Jasper has that question, and yeah, we tend to go to our radios, like go back to a lot of our radios regularly. So it's one of those things where you just have your favorites at some point, and that's what you choose and will bring with you all the time. So in here, if I am to use a radio, a portable radio, like because if I'm in my office, two radios will immediately pop up most of the time. I will either use my SDR, which is the network SDR play device, and tune that. And my second here will be the Yaesu FTD-X10. They make a really, really good pair because above 10 megahertz, the Yaesu wins. Below 10 megahertz, the magnetic loop makes any radio plugged on it win, and I usually prefer to have an SDR to view the waterfall on the screen. So that's will be what I use in my office here. Sometimes I do plug in a few portables on the multi-coupler so that I can play with other radios and tune different things at the same time. But if we get out of my room here and I am somewhere else, I'm in the kitchen, I'm in the balcony, I'm in the backyard, and I want to listen to radio, that's where it gets a little different. In the kitchen listening, I would say 9 out of 10 times my go-to radio will be the Texan S2200X. Beautiful big radio, nice big sound coming out of it, great performance, and that will be like my. It's almost like my tabletop radio of the kitchen because it's pretty big for a portable, and so that will be has been for the last year, and that would probably be most of the time what I do if I listen to shortwave in the kitchen doing cooking or whatever, or even in the backyard, the balcony in the backyard most of the time. Um, I go to the park, I go somewhere else, I need a portable radio. What is my go-to radios right now that I will go with, say, walk in the park? Well, I'll use a lot the Texan PL520. Since I have it, I've been using it a lot. I love it. I liked its performance. It's a great little radio. And it's, just big enough that it's easy to bring everywhere. Right now, that's my go-to radio most of the time. But I vary my radios. I like to bring other radios with me when I go to walk in the park and stuff. So if it's not that, I'll probably choose one of my um, little Texan portables, or I sometimes take on the, even with its flaws, sometimes with the low audio on SSB, the Sangean ATS 909X. It's kind of a fun radio to bring along to a walk in the park, or even a DXpedition that I would go to. These are small radios. I'll bring the Texan PL 990, for example. That is one that I will go to pretty regularly. Surprisingly, I've not used the H501X much in a little while. But not that I have anything against it. It's just that it's bigger radio. So for portable use somewhere, I prefer to have a radio that's a little smaller and that is not um, as uh, as heavy, especially when you had the batteries in it. So that will be the way of the radios that I use pretty much. The M-Lite 880, I barely use it. I use it from time to time, but it's not my favorite. And apart from the noise reduction on signals that are strong enough to use it, I don't have it doesn't have much appeal to me. So it's kind of gathering more dust than anything else. I will take it out more, and I will, of course, use it this summer. I will, of course, if I do a DXpedition in a Perry Island and something. I've never, I didn't have that radio when I went there last time, so it will be one of the radios I will bring with me absolutely at some point in some of those walk in the park videos or stuff, because I will want to play with it for sure. But I have kind of my go-to favorites that I always kind of fall back on, which are always pretty much the same. So, I will probably be using a lot either the Texan PL 990, the Texan PL 520. Those types of radios will be more of my go-to radios for, little DXpeditions outside. So, what else do we have? Kevin Michael, I get South American stations on the 3 and 5 megahertz. I got Brazil on 4810. DH1AO says, do shortwave listeners use logbooks for, let's say, antenna compare and so on, or isn't it useful anymore? Some shortwave listeners do have logbooks, that's for sure. I'm not sure that you necessarily have logbooks to compare, say, different antennas. Most shortwave listeners probably have only one antenna anyways. But there's definitely a use for comparing and using a logbook maybe to compare the signal strength of the same, the same station, but with two different antennas, that's for sure. Fiddle says the Asahi beer here is brewed in Italy. At least that's what the can says. Kevin Michael, 2310 and 4810 is shortwave radio Australia at night most of the time. Robert Varner says, I used to make pizzas in an Italian restaurant decades ago. I must have gone through miles of mozzarella cheese. Skidology says 15500 is coming not too bad outside at the parking lot of our apartment complex. Kevin Michael, my go-to radio is a Grundig Satellite 800. My WX50, my Satellite 800 was my go-to radio before I bought my SDR Play. Yeah, that is often what happens when you get an SDR. My go-to radio at home here for a long time before the SDR world arrived was my ICOM ICR 8500. And when I got my first good SDR, my ICOM became a paperweight because the flexibility and the amazing thing about SDRs of seeing all the signals in the waterfall and so on made me use my SDR way more. It was more appealing, more interesting than using the than using an actual radio like the icon. So let's just check here. There's a few pirates there's a pirate on 6925 maybe. Let's see if we hear something here. Not really hearing anything, but apparently something on 6925 or 6924.3 here. So an ID'd station, and that's at 2208. So 6924.3 apparently. Could be a little something in AM mode. So, but I'm not hearing even a little squeak. Old radio's got pulled pork. Kevin Michael, the Baofeng UVK5 and Yaesu FT96 for VHF is my two go-to radios. Kevin Michael, if I take a radio with me, it would be the PL990. Mark, yeah, on channel 6, those guys on the Super Bowl channel, they run hundreds, if not a kilowatt of power. They are really, really, really running high power. Like WX50, I haven't used a logbook since the early 80s. I transcribed my loggings to Google Sheets. Jim's radio check. Nice to have you here. Hope everybody is having a nice 4th of July. Having terrible weather here. Just got 6 inch of rain in southern DuPage County. Water rescues are going on. Yeah, 6 inch. That's a lot of rain. Mike B, I emailed you a joke. I'll let you be the judge whether it's acceptable for the live stream. Okay. Let me check that out. Let me check that out. It's a little out there. So, adult content warning. What are the two things that you want on your pizza but not your lover? Extra cheese and crust. That brings a lot of images. Good. Bob from Wick, is it possible to have a setup where when you're out, you can VPN or have a tunnel to your home computer SDR and see it when you're out? Yeah, you can do that. Absolutely, you can. You can do an online connection through. There's several ways to do it. There's a way within Windows itself. There are software to do it also. There's all sorts of ways to do it. To have access to your PC and see it anywhere you are. And have access for example, tune around your SDR and stuff like that. Definitely, you can do it. BR5492 PL330 is great for portable for me anyways. Yeah, PL330 is great. Old radio sweating like crazy. Fiddle, is there a SDR setup for a Mac desktop? Well, you can, the SDR Play devices with SDR Connect are compatible with a Mac computer. You can use the SDR Play devices. And there's a couple of software, SDR software, that also make some other SDRs work on a Mac desktop. It depends on the SDR that you're going to use, but that is the fun thing about the SDR Connect software that SDR Play is coming up with is going to be multi-platform, and that is great. We need more of software that is capable of running on all platforms. So SDR Connect works on Linux, works on a Mac, works on Windows, and that is great. They're even going to have eventually a version that will work on Android. So that's going to be really, really cool. Kev Michaels says 27025 is always blasting here. Normal days. A lot of people laughing at the joke. Jim's radio check so much for pizza tonight. Good. WDX50 says, I heard this joke today. What did one DNA strand say to the other DNA strand? Do these genes make me look fat? Good. So we'll be checking, but even if propagation is bad tonight, you guys need to check out the pirate bands, because I think that there's going to be some good activity on the pirate bands throughout the night. So do check HF Underground, particularly for any details of something that's coming up. It's still early for pirates, so it's normal that there's not a lot of activity yet. Wonder if sometimes Turkey is late. Is it there? Nope, no Turkey. We got those two lines there that are Radio Marti on 11860 and 11930. Both of them. Look at that 25-meter band, how quiet it is. Usually when I do my live shows, we see tons of spikes. Now tonight, it's very weak. The Madagascar World Voice is there, but it's not as strong as it is usually. You see that propagation is not what it is usually when we listen to the bands together. I mean, last week it was really, truly great. Apparently, is there no turkey? I guess it's hot dogs and hamburgers later. Toastin' Love, yeah, I saw that ad for something parody tonight. Brett Woolley, and record and share your videos with us, please. Yep, absolutely. There's a lot of stuff out there. A lot of guys enjoyed the Canada Day broadcast from Pop Shop Radio for they played the top 15 hits of July 1st, 1976. So those songs brought back a lot of memories for a lot of people out there. I can tell you that. Whole radio's got to be at work at 6:55 a.m. Wow, that's early. That reminds me of my first job ever. We would start at 7 a.m. I had to get on the bus at the latest at around 6:05 a.m. if I wanted to get on time. That was so brutal. I just am so happy today to get up at the time that I wanted to get up. Skidology at 11610 is definitely weaker than it normally is outside due to the solar storm. Mike WX52 Eskimos sitting in a kayak were chilly, so they lit a fire in the craft. Sadly, the fire sunk the kayak, proving again that you can't have your kayak in a heat too. Good. Kevin Michael 9700 kilohertz Madagascar was on a few days ago before the geostorm came. Thank you, Brett Woolley, for the donation. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. It is, and we got an email that just came in. So, email is from Frank, and he is in the southwest of England. And he says that he watches a live show often, and that sometimes he doesn't watch it all to the end because he falls asleep as it's late there in the UK. Question for you. When the bands are dead like tonight and there's not a lot of stuff to listen to, if you feel like doing radio, what do you do? Do you still tune around the shortwave bands? What will you do or do different? Thanks for the answer. So, Frank, what do I do when the bands are dead and I really kind of want to tune around? I'll do what I usually will do. It's simply tune very slowly. So what I'll do is, like choose any band and often put myself in single sideband, because when you tune around, if there's something weak, you know that it's going to be there. And you'll hear it in single sideband, because in AM mode, you might miss whatever you're trying to tune when it's really weak. So I'll do that, and I'll slowly tune around and see what's out there. For a simple reason, like there's something on 11590 here that's very weak. The only, I don't see it on the display there. It's just below Madagascar. I see nothing. But if I tune slowly, you hear that tone. I know now that there's something on 11590. So that, using that trick of single sideband, helps me to pinpoint any weak signals that I might miss. Now, it's too weak to listen to, but still, sometimes I'll still tune around and do that, even if it's you can't really understand anything. For a very simple reason, is that sometimes you might have some very weak exotic signal, and you're like, oh, look at that, that's that. So if I do 11590 here, what it says right now is a Voice of America from Kuwait in Mandarin. So this is what I have now, or, because that also is a possibility, or it could be CNR1 jammer that is there, but it's not strong enough for me to identify it. But I know that I'm listening to a very weak signal from either the Voice of America in Mandarin, and that would be from the Kuwait transmitter side, or I have a CNR1 jammer direct from China on that frequency. So it's still something that you might say, because people will, depending on what you want, you might say, well, it's kind of boring. You can't listen to the program really. If you're into program listening, of course, that's not necessarily what you want to do. But I'm a guy that likes to DX a lot. I like to, let's see what's out there. Even the weakest of signal, where is it coming from? And it kind of makes it interesting for me that even though I can't listen to a program, I still am receiving a weak signal from somewhere. And sometimes it often will be somewhere I never received something before, or something that will surprise me. It's like, oh, look at that station is up there. So, you do that. I also will tune a lot the utility bands. I concentrate a lot on the utility bands to listen to stuff, because there's all sorts of things out there, and those can be also very surprising. And in conditions like we are having right now, where the bands are not that great, and I always say that signals from certain areas are enhanced. You might be hearing something from an area where usually you don't hear anything. So it's worth it to tune around and still check out what's out there. You'll never know what you can get. So you tune slowly. Always tune in single sideband for the weak signals. That is a very good rule in order to not miss out on anything that would be just washed up in the noise and you could not hear it or see it on a display. Like here, for example, something we hear very often. So this is link 11. These are NATO links in between NATO countries. So the different NATO stations have these link 11 signals that are exchanged. These have been going on for a very, very long time also. So you hear them all over the bands. So if you look at the utility, try to find utility information on Google or anywhere, usually you'll find out what is the NATO station, where it's located to transmit that. It's something that you cannot decode. It's encrypted, but it's definitely something that you should just slowly tune around and try to see what's out there, even in bad conditions, because sometimes, like I say, something is enhanced and you could be surprised that you hear something that you've never heard before because of the conditions that we're in that are kind of unique. Mike B, thank you so much for the donation and taking some extra cheese and a thick crust is sounds a little a little tough after your joke. So what else do we have? Kevin Michael, remember getting up at 5 in the morning, getting ready for the 6 a.m. bus to go to work. Yeah, I was one of those guys that I showered before bed at night, and in the morning I would wake up as late as I can. So to get the 6 a.m. 6:05 bus, 6:05 a.m., I was 10 minutes walking distance from the bus stop. So what I would do is wake up at 5:45, do everything ultra quick, get out of the house at 5:55, and be at the bus stop at 6:05, so that I could have his maximum amount of sleep. Because one of the biggest problems, I've never been an early riser. Me in life, as long as I can remember, even going to school, the problem was not school. The problem was that I had to wake up at 7 in the morning to go to school. And that was always the big problem. So I always kept also at the same time, like when I would work or anything, even at school. I mean, I had no bedtime. My parents never told me, no, okay, it's bedtime. You got to go to sleep. They never told me it was bedtime. So I would go to sleep when I was tired. And what happened is that with all this stuff, the radio and everything, what would happen is I would, stay up until 1 a.m. knowing that I still have to wake up, at 5:45 the next morning. So sometimes I was kind of tired, but I was so happy when I started working, being self-employed and all, and then doing YouTube videos. That finally was over. It's like, no, I don't have to wake up at 6 anymore. I don't have to do that anymore. Thank you. Skidology. Gonna head back inside because it seems like it's about to rain. Okay, Michael, will Geostorm open to 30 to 50 megahertz to DX? Geomagnetic storm has all sorts of effects on VHF, UHF range. Sometimes it opens up long distance communications on the VHF range. A lot of people, a lot of hams actually, when there's a strong geomagnetic storm, will point their antennas on 2 meters, for example, towards the auroras, towards the pole, to see if the VHF signal will be bounced off or do long distance because of that. And there's a lot of um, communications, long distance communications that have gone to thousands of miles, and strong geomagnetic storm conditions in the VHF, and even sometimes in the UHF range. It has all sorts of weird effects on these high frequencies when that happens. Old radios. I wonder who's having 1976 themed 4th of July. Yeah, that would be interesting. Talking about a anniversary. There's an anniversary today, guys, of if you've been listening for a long time. It was July 4th, 1976, that the famous Russian woodpecker came on the air for the first time. Before July 4th, 1976, there was no over-the-horizon radar from Russia. And it was an interesting article that I read today in Radio Magazine, which is a French magazine. And they were saying that when it appeared for the first time, it would appear anywhere from about 3 megahertz all the way up to 19 megahertz. And sometimes it would be over all sorts of frequencies. One of the things that they didn't like is that apparently the woodpecker was sometimes on the aeronautical bands. So you would have the Russian woodpecker on the frequencies where, air traffic control would communicate with planes. So there were things like that, of course, all over the amateur bands and the broadcast bands everywhere. And what they were saying is that the Duga system, that it was called, was not, that first transmission site was in the south of Ukraine. And they said that the first transmissions, the first time they did their radar system on the woodpecker, it didn't work well. They couldn't really identify anything. They couldn't even, a missile would have gone through and they would not have known. Apparently it was really a big mess and it didn't work well. It's only when they actually did the Duga 2 system, which was an upgraded system later in like early 80s, which was the one that we would hear throughout the 80s, that the system finally worked decently well in detecting planes, missiles, and all of that using their system. And they had changed the place of the transmitter and receiver into the official Russian territory back in the day. But it was an interesting read. So today is, in fact, the 50th anniversary of the Russian woodpecker on the HF bands. And for a long, long time, in the beginning, people were wondering where those pulses were coming from on the shortwave bands. And it took several months before everybody started thinking, okay, it's coming out of USSR. Because the USSR itself would say, no, we don't have that system. We don't have anything like that. They would deny that they had that radar. But, over time, the United States and all the allies kind of realized, okay, this is coming from inside Russia. And so it's 50 years today, the first time that a woodpecker appeared on HF. So, old radios. I'm drinking beer like they did in 1976. Richard Wagner used to work at 5 a.m. To 4:30, but Motorola up, oh man, up at 3:45. Kevin Michael, heard that 11016, how you get that on Kiwi SDR. So, yeah, you can get that on the Kiwi SDR. Brett Woolley, 102 temperatures. I got a savage thunderstorm headed my way. Be careful, my friend. DJ Craze, I was surprised to hear Art Bell last night on 6925. Yeah, there were interesting names on the stations last night. I was looking at the HF Underground, and HF Underground, last night there was Space Junk Radio. What you heard was called Art Bell Speaks Radio. There was WQTR, Tales from the Frequency Radio. One that was posted on the Shortwave group was Antifa Radio. Another one was Bowling for Soup Radio. So lots of very unusual names and Band-Aid Radio, Outhouse Radio, WTF, which is a regular. So lots of stations last night. Pretty crazy. There was one called Hawaiian Numbers Radio. Hawaiian Numbers Radio. So that was kind of okay. So right now, if you're hearing something on 6924.3 AM, it's Captain Morgan Shortwave. Using my single sideband trick, I can detect the carrier. I definitely know it's there, but I cannot hear anything. It's too weak in the noise. Too weak in the noise. What else do we have? BR5949 says, I had a job once. I didn't care for it. Pretty true. So Gilles will never be a morning man on the radio. Nope. That is not. I would be an overnight guy. The ones that talk until 4 a.m., that I would do. I'd be perfect, actually, for that job. Bob from work, Joe, similar to me, I had no controlled regime, so sleep pattern was a mess. Mike, WX50, I worked for 44 years, but now I get paid to do nothing. Can't complain about retirement. Nope. Don't complain about that. J Projects. That's quite the coincidence for the woodpecker. Yeah, definitely. I was like, wow, it's interesting that it appeared on July 4th. It's kind of an interesting story, the date. You know, it's almost like thinking, is that done on purpose? You know? DJ Craze says this was the second time I heard Art Bell on the air in the last 6 months. He gave greetings from the grave. Brett Woolley, radio folks are almost always night owls. Yeah, because there's so much to listen to at night. There's that, and there's that mystery, that the glowing radios, especially coming from the old days of tube radios, but even with modern radios, with all the displays that are lit up. There's something magical about being kind of in the dark with your radio and tuning around signals and mysterious signals. Kevin Michael, Russian Woodpecker, was on the shortwave all day. It was strong enough to mask WWV on 10. Oh yeah, that was powerful, crazy powerful. DJ Craze, Captain Morgan Radio on 6924.3. Went off a little while ago. Red Woolley, they made LLM of all of Art's shows, and it was an amazing show from the grave. Cool. KW61, I wonder if the Ukraine people, oops, I get back, will celebrate the anniversary by sending fireworks to Russia. Yeah, that probably. DJ Craze, Antifa, Tales of WQTR, and Art Bell were all in the same transmitter. I could tell by the waterfall. There's a lot of the pirates that actually all shared by the same guy. It's like there's one, there's a handful of guys doing pirates, and out of those, 4 or 5 guys doing pirates, there's a couple that are like the relays of tons of pirate shows. And so a lot of them come from the same place. Kevin Michael, Art Bell, Coast to Coast AM. I was on 720 from Las Vegas back in the day. Toast and Love, I don't see how they can get much resolution to see things smaller than the wavelength at, say, 10 megahertz and 10 kilohertz wide. Actually, it's not seeing the actual structure. It's apparently, what they were talking about is that apparently when say a missile is sent, the exhaust from the rocket that pushes the missile, or the missile itself, creates kind of a plume of plasma that is what they are seeing with the Whitpecker radars. So they're not seeing the actual device, but they're seeing the signature of the device as it's going. So that's what they were explaining. It created some distortions in the radio frequency spectrum. So that is what they would see with the Woodpecker and analyzing it with computers. DJ Craze. Then, of course, later on, I did a reception report of Ball Smacker Radio on temporary frequency 6958 AM due to the FSK. And Mike B says we have baby back ribs, brisket, and ears of corn in the smoker. And we are grilling some fresh peaches and some pineapple. The place smells fantastic. There's plenty for everyone. So, okay, guys, let's all jump in and go to our friend Mike B here. We are going for a great time and great food. Sheila, nice to have you here from Belleville, Ontario. Bob Rouse, July 4th, 76, American Bicentennial. Huge celebration like the 250th. Date was geopolitically motivated. Yeah, it's possible. DJ Craze, North American Pirate Radio Relay Service, yeah. Kev Michael, there's pirates on 27 megahertz too, playing 70s rock. Yep, absolutely. I haven't heard it in a long time. I wish he would be there. I need to listen. Maybe he is and I didn't know. But I miss, there's this guy that can't be that far away around Montreal or in Montreal that I haven't heard now for a couple of years. He used to get on Friday or Saturday night, and he used to play shortwave interval signals for like an hour and a half before he stopped. And it was kind of cool. I was like, wow, this is kind of cool to have the interval signals. And I wish I knew where he was, because it was kind of interesting. And I heard them always by accident. Always by accident. I would just tune around the different channels. And then I would be like, oh, here's the interval signals. And pretty much always on Friday or Saturday night. Never really at other times. And so, and he had a real good variety of the interval signals. It was really, really something. So I miss that. I don't know if he still exists and still does that. I would like to, I need to tune around. Maybe could still be there. Next time that if I ever hear him again, next time that I hear him, I definitely will make a video. His signal here was never very strong on my outdoor antenna. It was not very strong, but it was, it's interval signals. So even with a weak signal, it was easy to hear the different interval signals and know what station it was playing. So definitely there needs to be he needs to do it again. I'd like to have him do that again. So, but now it's been, at least last time I heard him was, I'd say 2 years ago, at least 2 years ago. But it's kind of cool, you go on the CB channels and you're like, oh, look at that. Somebody's playing interval signals. And he was always playing interval signals in AM mode. He was never in single sideband. So that was kind of intriguing. Tosanov, that couple that climbed the Empire State Building the other day, got really close to all the antennas up there. I wonder if they felt anything. Well, it's even worse than that, because at one point they were hanging on to the main antenna. And this is what we are wondering. It's like, you touch, like Tosanov says. He says he's been zapped by a 5 watts. He's been zapped by 5 watts from a CB, and it doesn't feel good. I've been zapped too. I've been zapped with even higher, because the old FT450 I got here, the microphone, the insulation has a crack in it. And one day when I was transmitting, the metal screw of the microphone was touching my palm. I can tell you that when I wanted to transmit, I left the microphone real quick. It really, really, really was a great feeling. So I'm surprised, because they were close to many antennas, because there's antennas that are lower, antennas that are higher, and the main antenna at the top, and they were touching that. I mean, it's impossible to touch thousands of watts antenna without being zapped. So I guess they were lucky or something. They didn't touch whatever should not be touched. I don't know. I'm surprised. And I guess by the time they got to the top antenna, all the TV stations and radio stations, they had switched to their backup antenna. But they could have killed themselves, basically. As simple as that. Especially with the high power that TV and radio use. I'm trying to. It's hard for me to explain, to understand how they could have survived that. Honestly. Craig Martinetti, I miss the mailbag programs. There are still a few. Radio Romania, Voice of Turkey, has some. Voice of Shortwave Radio, the guy reads a lot of listener mail. There's still a few out there to listen to. DJ Craze, ever been zapped by a flyback transformer? Nope, and I really don't want to. I don't want to know how it feels. It must not be really good. KW61 says, Joe, when played Moscow Nights, did you do the hand dance? I always do the hand dance. Tosalov, surely they couldn't just climb on a 100 kilowatt antenna without getting a big jolt. Yeah, that's the thing. But up there, it's not 100 kilowatts, but it's several kilowatts, still several kilowatts, because they're TV and FM radio stations. So there must be some that are 5, 10, 15, 20 kilowatts at least. Even that is crazy. Brought from work, their love found a new spark. Kevin Michael, is Denmark radio on 252 kilohertz and shortwave? Well, they used to be on shortwave. Is the long wave still there from Denmark? That's a good question. Denmark 252 kilohertz. And yeah, that's it. They're gone from long wave. Oh, and Denmark was on 243 kilohertz, actually. So they ceased operation in late 2023. Not that long ago, actually. 252 is the Algerian longwave station with 1,000,000 watts. That's crazy powerful. So DJ Craze, most of the TV is on the World Trade Center and has backups. Cosmic lettuce or if burns are the worst. Yep. Free to choose. Climbing those towers is dangerous. Even the cops arresting them had to take measures. They probably turned off. Yeah, because when they learned, they immediately switched to their backup antennas. So they those antennas had no more frequency, no more transmissions on them. Because I mean, wow. Ken Michael, it is a wonder they didn't get zapped. That is Channel 4 in New York on those towers. I would guess they found them quickly enough and sent the information quickly enough that all the broadcasters quickly switched off and switched to a different antenna for their broadcast. DJ Craze, there's many FM stations that are lower on the combiner ring, but none at the high levels. ERP is 50 kilowatt for WBLS alone, but they aren't putting out 50 kilowatt. Dave Newmeyer says transmitters were turned off during the incident. Yeah, that's what it's the only thing I could see is that when they learned that was happening, they quickly switched off the transmitters on these antennas and switched to the backup antennas. Kevin Michael missed the DX party line. Yeah, that was my Saturday night listen when I was young. Tulsa I felt a few good TV tube zaps. Well, I got my share of zaps over the years. I gotta tell you, I played a lot of electricity, so I got my share of being zapped, and I don't want it anymore. Skidology, voice of shortwave radio, is broadcasted by Wavecrest guy from Molokai, Hawaii, through WRMI. Yep. Actually, I think he's coming on now at 23, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, they wouldn't have survived it. Not at the power levels that are there. Craig Martinetti, I was thinking about Radio Australia and Radio Netherlands and HCJB mailbag programs, though. Yeah, I like the format of the musical mailbag they had on HCJB, which was always before. It was my listen night. It was like musical mailbag, and then it was DX Party Line. DJ Cray says Channel 4 WNBC is guest on Channel 35. Raul Gongora, nice to have you on board. Very sunny in heat wave and heat to short waves. Most difficult to catch stations international for my like better weather. Blessing. Nice to have you here. DJ K Rays, yeah, the wattage of most stations is between 1 and 10 kilowatts. Free to choose. Do people who climb transmission towers for maintenance risk developing cancer? They get exposed to radiation. there is a there are some rules. There are some rules where you technically have to not go over certain levels, and because even though there's no proof per se, no scientific proof, radio RF, basically radio frequencies, are, when you're transmitting, they are classified as possible to actually increase the risk of cancer. So there's certain levels. The people that climb these towers, and generally what'll happen is that they will do so and go to a certain level where the exposure to RF, it doesn't go over a certain threshold. If there really is a need to go near the antennas and stuff, then they do maintenance and shut down the transmitters. And that's why some stations will shut down once a year or once every couple of years, because people will go up the tower and will be doing work. And, well, you can't transmit while we're very close to the antennas. One report that I have seen, and that one is, it's difficult to assess on that one. One of the reports that I've seen is about cancer in the amateur radio community. And cancer in the amateur radio community is higher than the average population. So that's one of the first things you got to understand. Now, where does it come from? And this is where it gets tricky. You can't say, oh, well, he's using radio waves, so he's got cancer because of radio waves. It's not that clear. Why? Because what are amateur radio operators also good at? They're often the guys that will make electronic circuits, repair electronic circuits. So they will, absorb that fume from their soldering iron, whatever. They are close to, we know that the circuit boards are often sprayed with chemicals to prevent fire from catching too fast, too quickly, or prevent fires. That these chemicals are known to cause cancer. So in that, it was a very lengthy report that came out. You can't have a clear understanding of where does it come from, because we are exposed to RF. We are exposed to chemicals from electronics. If you start playing around and do your own little electronic circuits with your soldering iron and all of that, you're exposed to the fumes. You're exposed to all sorts of chemicals. So the report came back with, there's a higher cancer rate among amateur radio operators, but we can't pinpoint it to what exactly. There's just too many variables in it. So something is definitely hiking the cancer rate, but we can't say it's the RF. We can't say we don't know what it is. There's something in there that does it. So, and it makes me think of my uncle that I loved, that he was a repair guy, TV repair guy. He died very young. He died, it was 50, I think it was 54, of cancer. And, I couldn't help but think about, the guy was a TV radio repairman. All the chemicals of all these devices that he's been exposed to in his little shack there where he would fix things. You can't help but think that, maybe it's part of the reason he died young with cancer, because of all the chemicals that he was around. And you don't know. It's not, it's not clear cut. It's not clear cut. Cosmic Lettuce, what kind of materials are used for a megawatt transmitter antenna? Well, they're the same antennas of anything else. They just have a all the parts that construct the antenna are heavy gauge to make sure that they can handle all the extra power and not overheat. It's like amateur radio antennas. If you like, I have an infrared antenna. My infrared has the parts in it are, the balun, 49-to-1 balun. Well, that coil is rated at 100 watts maximum. But if you go online, you can go or if you're good at making your own stuff, you can create one and say, well, with this gauge of wire, these parts, mine will be rated at 500 watts because it's capable of enduring more power. And so the megawatt transmitters they follow the same pattern. They are heavy duty, parts that can handle a lot of transmitting power. Raul Gongor says, I like most Spain International, sometimes Japan, Romania, and many more. Cool. Bob Rouse, the Empire State Building antenna area at gates. The gates were open, have interlock switches that shut the transmitter and automatically send the feed to the alternate transmitter. That would explain things. That would explain a lot. That if they had those protections, that if these gates were opened and an automatic circuit sends the feed to the alternate, that would explain why they got it easy. Because, I mean, if it wasn't the case, they were dead. DJ Craze, I'll bet Scott Feibush will be doing a detailed report on what the stations had to do in the next issue of Northeast Radio Watch. He has been up to the ESB doing articles about them with photos. Okay. Kevin Michael, I remember Denmark Radio on Longwave 243. I can't remember what the shortwave was. Actually, Radio Denmark was a station that never broadcast in English. It was a Danish station only. And when you would listen to them, they would just start their broadcast with this is Radio Denmark. This station exclusively broadcast in Danish. And that's it. 6155, the ORF Austria frequency, which lasted a long time before it got shut down a few years ago, unfortunately. That was the last Radio Austria transmission that we could hear. Here was coming in not too bad in the East Coast. Yeah. So, Kenneth says, I heard that WCBS TV engineer retired. Huh. Jace Gilbert, nice to have you on board. Great to point out association does not equal causation for an illness. Yep. So it was like, there's a lot of that going on. It's like, okay, yeah, there is higher cancer rates in amateur radio operators, but what is it? And it could be, in this case, a mix of all sorts of things. I'm in that category. I'm the category of radio waves, RF. I'm the category of dabbling with electronics, soldering iron, the fumes, playing with electronics with all the chemicals. So, there's a lot going on here. Kenneth said the only time to go on the top is to change the warning lights. Dusseldorf 20 to 30 megahertz is still relatively dead, but I haven't seen any more flare noises. Brett Woolley became current. The H1AO, for cancer induced by radiation, you need either particles, alpha radiation, or high frequency radiation like X-ray or gamma. Lower frequency photons are not strong enough to deplete genes in the DNA. Yeah, they're in the category like RF waves. Like when we broadcast, like we transmit with our ham gear, the frequencies that we're using are not known to be, they don't break our DNA. They don't have an interaction with our cells in a way that say a gamma ray does or whatever. Yet there's still this. They are not put in a safe category because yet there is still this. We don't really know. We don't really know. And there have been a lot of tests with animals exposed to thousands of watts of power and with RF. And some studies say there's a higher risk of there was a higher incidence of cancer on some animals. Some reports are like, well, we didn't see any change. So because of that, they can't put it in it's safe. They're putting it in we don't really know, and it's better to be exposed the least amount possible, because even though it doesn't damage our genes or anything, we know one thing is that at ham radio frequencies, for example, a lot of the RF that goes through our body is transformed into heat. Our body resonates at some of these frequencies and does create heat. Very small amount of heat. We don't realize it. It's not like a microwave. But, all of that puts it in the category of, we don't really know. It's better to play safe and not go through, I look at a building that's not that far from here. It's a very tall building. Here we have, the buildings here are 5-6 stories high, 7 maybe maximum. But in the distance, there's one that's something like 40-45 stories. It's an apartment building. It's been there forever. And all the cable companies and all the companies that want to have, a good range, all put their antennas on top of that building because it just clears the way everywhere. And I was looking at it the other day. They put cell antennas all around it in the middle and at the top. And I don't know about you, but if I'd be renting an apartment in that building, I'm not sure I'd be happy to look out the window and see, oh, look at that. I'm just next to a cell tower antenna. I wouldn't feel great with that, personally. I would not be happy. I don't know about you guys, but I would be, I think I'm going to move. Okay, Michael, I've heard about hams getting cancer chemicals from doing TV repair, also radio waves and microwave bands. DJ Craze, I've been even closer to its dummy load. My WX50, it's a shame that Radio Denmark never did any English broadcasts other than the English ID at the beginning. They had only one. I still remember. I think it was for an anniversary show, or their station was celebrating like 50 years or 60 years. And they had that was exceptional. They had one full 30-minute English broadcast once. And I remember I listened to it. I don't remember what year it was. I remember that one of the QSLs I have here comes from that transmission. But that was the only time they actually had a full English language broadcast. And so RJ Dakota. No, it wasn't Radio Finland, RJ Dakota. Radio Finland had English throughout the week. It's Radio Norway. Norway had English only on Sunday, which I always found kind of odd. Cosmic lettuce, fumes from soldering are nasty, absolutely. Bob from Wick history is rife with people getting sick or dying because dangers weren't known. You know, there's a lot of stuff around us, pollution and all. Royal says, many times I got Radio Miami International correct with another Emisaurus, very interesting. Yeah, they have a lot of relays, which are interesting, absolutely. Brian Leesner, loved the smell of Rosencore solder. And way back in the day, there were no fume hoods fans. We just soldered away. I was like that smart little kid back in my teenage years. I went out, you guys are going to believe it. I went out to that electronics surplus store that I have here. They had filters that were meant for devices. And of course, they sold tons of little fans of all sorts. So when I started doing electronic stuff with my soldering iron, first thing I thought is, okay, breathing in that crap cannot be good for me. I already knew that it can be good. So I went to that electronic surplus store. I bought a filter, and I bought replacement filters that you could put inside it. And I bought a fan, very powerful fan that worked directly on the 120 AC. That fan was like noisy, but it worked. So what I would do is I'd put the filter, I'd put the fan that would push the air on the opposite, and I would solder here. And so I could see the smoke from my soldering going into the filter because it was sucked in by the air, and out I wouldn't see anything. So I thought that must be safer. So every time I would solder, and I remember my mom telling me once, can you stop that freaking fan? It's so noisy. I said, yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm doing some soldering and I want to make sure that I don't, have all the fumes coming out of me. And every time I did a circuit, and I was like 15, I was like, no, I'm not going to take a chance. And so that little thing worked fine. Every month I'd take out the filter, and it was like dark colored because of all of the smoke particles that would get stuck in it. And I'd just replace it with a new filter. And so I thought, well, maybe I'm, helping myself in doing that. Paul Stringer, Radio Pamela will be transmitting tomorrow on 6930 between 9 and 11 UTC. Tosenlof, we're resonant about 1.5 meters, I'm guessing. Gabriel says, Gilles, which was the Nordic station that only broadcast 5 minutes news in English? Radio Finland. I think that was Radio Finland. So the Norway was the one on Sundays, that I do remember. And I think that you're right, that Radio Finland was like a short 5 or 10 minute English news broadcast. And then they would go back in their local language. Bob Rouse, the two climbers, when arrested, were found with burglary lock-picking tools in their possession. Oh yeah, Tosinov. It's like there's this movement of all these, kids that want to climb all of these big towers because of they want to get famous and put that on YouTube and TikTok and stuff. Free to choose. I heard about a case long ago where Vatican Radio had to lower its transmission power because the surrounding population complained they were getting cancer and other symptoms. There was definitely a case that went through, which never really went anywhere. But in the Vatican state, and the people that were near the transmitter site of Vatican Radio, There was a medium wave broadcast that was like 1,000,000 watts. That one was a megawatt, a medium wave station. And there were reports that the population in the city or near the transmitter site had higher cancer rates than the general population. So people started thinking that, well, look at those antennas there. You know, I wonder if they have something to do with that. And there was a case actually done where they went to court and all of that, and they didn't get money. It didn't go through. They couldn't win because how are you going to prove that it's the antennas and the transmitters? It's very difficult because there could be something else. But with that, Vatican Radio agreed that they would go from 1,000,000 watts to something like 500 kilowatt. They would have the power to please the population. But, you know. DJ Craze, Major Armstrong used to do FM experiments between the Empire State Building and a monopole at West Peak in Meriden Seat, Connecticut, where the first licensed FM station started. The pole is still there. Wow. Like GX50, Radio Norway, yeah. Kevin Michael, and want a 6G antenna on top of my building. The H1AO, exactly higher watts correspond to higher intensity, or photons per minute, but not to energy per photon. So yep, so the lower frequencies do lead to some heating. Like WX50, Radio Finland had a program called Northern Report. Yeah. Tosanov, or let's just go back here. Well, depending, it's the Tosanov, depending on the power output. Every frequency range in the HF to VHF spectrum up to a certain point tends to create some heat inside the human body. Apparently, 11016 is still going. Very interesting, and you can barely make it out looking at the spectrum. Yeah. North Dakota, half an hour of Finland recorded, of course, radio with a show called Radio Finland at its Sunday best. Maybe it was a half-hour show. Yeah, it's possible. Radio Finland. I love to listen to those Nordic countries. My favorites were like, okay, let's tune Radio Sweden, Radio Norway, and Radio Finland. Sundays, I would never miss my Radio Norway English broadcast on Sundays. That was a must for me. There's so many. You guys remember the Ricky Sudvarpid Iceland transmissions on shortwave? They were on odd frequencies. You guys remember that? That was Ricky Sudvarpid shortwave Iceland. Old frequencies. I think they were. You had to be on in single sideband to hear them, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to remember. Those were odd. Those were really odd. I have a a QSL card from that Rekisud Varpid station. Iceland. Does it come up? No. Riki. Yes, here we go. 1, 2. Yeah, look at that. I got a QSL from that. So here's the, I'm going to go here. I'm going to just display capture. So this was the Rekisud Varpid Iceland QSL card that I got. And it's from 1995. 30th of April, 1995. Oh, look at that. They were on, that's interesting. They're on WRMI's frequency of today, 15770. And was from 14 hours, 10 UTC to 14:59 or something. And you know what? That station, what was odd is that today 15770 is normal for a lot of us. All the stations that are above, so WWCR 15825, WRMI 15770. I mean, for us it's normal. Now there are stations there. Yet they are out of band. They are out of the international broadcast band. Technically, WRMI and WCR should be within the broadcast band. So back in the day, 95, there weren't a lot of out-of-band stations. So 15770 was an odd frequency to use at the time because they were out of band. So this is kind of cool. And so 95, it was where I lived before. Just by the postal code here, I could see it as where I lived before. So that was a QSL card from Iceland. I think it's the only one that I got from Iceland. I don't think I've got any other QSLs from there. In the Icelandic. I don't think I have more than one. So that was my Rekisud Varpid QSL from back in the day. So kind of cool. Hey TVDXer, ça va bien? J'espère que tu vas bien. Yeah, I would guess a lot of these Nordic stations were tough to get in the in the West Coast. Royal says, before Radio Vatican International 2, some U.S. stations on broadcast. Kevin Michael, Radio Vatican 1602 kilohertz. Received that in California in 1980s. DJ Craze, I can get to West Peak and Meriden in about 20 minutes. Most of that is going up the beat-up paved road from the park below it. Mike WX50 says Radio Sweden. Yeah, I love Radio Sweden. They, if you go on their website, they have a weekly show called Radio Sweden Weekly in English, and I do use it. I do stream it from time to time, listening to their broadcasts. It's kind of nice to listen to. It's a nice little podcast, 30 minutes. Mike WX50 remembers Iceland, 13797 for Iceland. Yeah, they had a couple of weird frequencies they were using. Royal says nothing like 1975 to 90. Lots of radio stations, international, all Europe, Asia, maybe Latin America, China, Korea. Yeah, lots of stuff back then. And Kevin Michael, remember Radio Vlaarman on the from Belgium? I remember Radio Vlaanderen International from Belgium. The H1AO, funny side note, several years ago, a lot of people in the village complained of having more headaches, feeling unwell since the T-Mobile set up 4G towers. Yeah, you got to be careful with that. You know, there was I remember seeing a TV, um, a TV show that talks about different subjects every week. And they were talking about people that say that they are sensitive to RF and that they feel sick when they're around RF. So they had a couple of people that said that they couldn't live in the city because of all the RF. And I couldn't help but think, like, there was this woman living in the forest, literally. She was living in a forest. And she said, I have no choice. All the, radio frequencies are making me sick. And I couldn't, it's like, she said, even the tiniest RF, and I was like, yeah, but the guy filming you with the camera, that camera is right now having enough RF with their different oscillators that you're in front of a little bit of RF right now. And, I don't know about that. I have a hard time and believing in that, but I guess, we got to have an open mind. I once fixed a computer of a guy that, said that he felt bad because he was living right across the street from a building that had these big cell antennas. And he said that he was moving because he just was sick all the time because of those antennas. So when he moved, he called me because he wanted me to set up his stuff. So I went to his place, and behold, where he moved, there was a huge cell tower, and it was just in the back of the building where he couldn't see. His windows were facing southwest, but to the north, pretty much northwest, that big tower was there, and the antennas were actually closer to him than where he lived before. So when I went there, and I asked the question, I said, do you feel better now? He says, oh, you have no idea. Here, not being close to the cell towers and stuff, I feel so good. And I was like, yeah, okay. That's the question I wanted to ask. It's like, okay, it's all up here. You see the antennas, now you kind of sick. And I didn't say anything because I was like, yeah, what am I going to do? Tell the guy that, well, that the antennas in the back of this building are cell tower antennas and that you're living even closer than you were living before. No, you just shut up. I was like, well, I'm not going to tell him. He's happy. I'm going to leave him in his happy place. But, sometimes you're like, okay. All right. And the H1AO says the specialist came over and proved the tower was never switched on. So there you go. It follows my story that I just said. Yeah, Radio Sweden had an old interval signal, and then they had a more modern one after that. Absolutely. RJ Dakota. Kevin Michael, I got RUV-1 Iceland on satellite back in the 90s. Well, Radio Moscow, Voice of Iran, Greek, Voice, Radio Cairo. Mike WX50 says the RF-sensitive lady needs to move to the United Station National Radio Quiet Zone in West Virginia. Yeah. Raul, many times, Santo Domingo, Dominica, or Republic. Yep, very close to Cuba. Yeah, Caracol, Colombia. Yeah, all these stations back in the day that were there. But sometimes it's like you got to be careful with what you feel is sometimes in your head more than the reality of what's around you. So it's crazy, but I've seen quite a few of those over time, and you're like, yeah, okay. DJ Craze, yeah, 198 long wave is off. Yeah, it's off. It's gone. They've turned it off on the 30th of June, actually. Yeah, Radio Clarín from the Dominican Republic was one of the stations back in the day. So, yep. So the 198 longwave was actually officially shut down on June the 30th. So it's gone forever now, unfortunately. And so it's like, Radio Nacional Amazonas. I hope they say it's temporary. I hope it is. But the fact that 11780, the best frequency in North America, is switched off in the evening now. It leaves 6180 at weekdays, and 6180 is not in the weekends. So it's kind of a delicate situation when you're wondering where we're going exactly. So, hey guys, we've been on for 3 hours 36. It's starting to feel hot here. I'm going to have to restart my air conditioning. And I am hungry for that pizza. I have a few things I want to do with, I need to edit the International Radio Report. So, we're going to do that. I hope you enjoyed the show today. It was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, propagation was really, really bad. What's the excuse for get long wave not being a thing on the side? On this side of what's the excuse for God long wave not being a thing on this side of the planet? Yeah, I don't know exactly why long wave never was used for broadcasts in North America. For some reason, it was never a thing. It was kept for other purposes. But yeah, kind of weird that it never was a thing here. So yes, it was a spammy show. So take care, guys, and stay safe. And I hope all of you have a great week and that you stay cool if it's too hot. And we're going to see each other again next week, 20 hours Universal Time, hopefully with good propagation this time around. Nice to have you here, guys. Stay safe. Love you all. And see you next week for another live show.